You to this committee. I'm Hector Gonzalez. I'm the superintendent of schools, and you were selected to be in this committee for a very special purpose. And before I get started, I just want to make you aware that this meeting will be recorded, and it will be not only recorded in sound but in video also, and we will be airing it on our television station KBSD. And it's a very honor to be here with you and be part of you, because this is really a group of people that's representing the community. And I want to thank you on behalf of the district, on behalf of the board, for willing to serve. This is not at any pay. If you were wondering how much you're going to get paid for being here, it's going to be zero. So don't expect any pay. We provide you with a few sandwiches and a Coke, and you'll be doing that at every meeting. But because of the fact that it is being aired, and I know all of us know each other or have met each other in one way or the other, but it seems how it's going to be aired, I'd like to go around the room and just introduce yourselves a little bit. And you want to say any comments concerning yourself, that's okay. And so we'll start right here with Mr. Ayala. Just introduce yourself.
Mariano Bean Ayala.
Butch Barbosa.
Michael Rodriguez.
Terry Ray.
Richard Sayas.
Ernesto de León.
Silverio Capistran.
Joe Jimenez.
Evaristo Gámez.
Arturo Farias. Good evening, I'm Jim Tipton, and I'm glad to be here.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julian Peña.
Charles Chuck Hoskins.
Larry.
First of all, like I say, I thank you for being here. And this is your group. And when I say this, I really mean that. You're going to be your own group, your own committee. And we start off, I'm going to start you off because somebody's got to start you off. So it's my responsibility and my duty as superintendent to start you off. And so if you look at this folder that you all of you have this folder. We're going to talk about what it is that you're going to be doing and what is your duties and responsibilities is when you serve in this committee. And when we look at it, I have drawn up this, and I'm not being a genius or anything. I took some of it from McAllen because McAllen has the same type of committee. And but it's going to be up to you once you select your chairperson and your vice chairperson, however you want to call them, your president, your vice president, however you want to do it, to be able to develop your own. And so we'll look at it from that point of view. But I got to give you a starting point. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to give you a starting point. And so when we look at what is your mission, what is the committee's mission? Does the Board of Trustees and Superintendent of the Brownsville Independent School District authorize and approve the establishment of a bond oversight committee to provide input and advise the administration and Board of Trustees on all bond projects that were approved by the voters in the May 13, 2006 election? That's what it is. You're in an advisory capacity. The law is very clear in the state of Texas that the board is the only one that votes up and down on items. However, this group advises the administration and the board and oversees what's going on in the development of the bond program. So it's a very important part of it, because whoever you choose as your chairperson, your vice chairperson, or subcommittees will be the ones that may be meeting with the board, reporting to the board, or reporting to administration. I know it's going to be difficult to get 17 people all together all at one time. Just like tonight, it's impossible for everybody to be here. But once we establish what committees are going to be and who's going to be doing it, then it becomes easier to facilitate. And that's what we're going to be doing. What is the commitment of the district? What is the commitment of the board to you all? The Board of Trustees and the Superintendent of the Brownsville Independent School District pledges that the district's administration shall regularly make public reports to the board and to the Bond Oversight Committee regarding the status of bond-funded projects and the expenditures, investments, and remaining balances of all bond proceeds. You'll be keeping track of all the money, how it's being spent. Nothing's going to go by without you all reviewing it, having the opportunity to ask questions, and advising either administration or the board or both in how things are going to be done and why they're being done. Now, the thing about it is this bond program, we're running a little bit behind. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you we're right on target on timeline. We're running behind. And the reason we're running behind is nobody, you can't point to one particular reason or one particular person or anything like that. The voters did this in May. Once it got approved, we started with the negotiations with the state to be able to get the money, be able to go sell the bonds and do and so forth. At the same time, we had a transition in administration, as you all well know. The superintendent was here that passed the bond, is no longer here. I'm here now. It took a while to get established and to refocus, and a lot of things came in between. In the meantime, we didn't stop the process. All the money is in hand now. All the money is in the district. All the money is in the banks. Now we need to proceed with what the voters asked us to do, is to build schools. And we're in the process right now of acquiring properties, selection of architects and so on, and we'll go through that as we do a presentation to you all as to what's going on, so you'll be fully versed on what's going on. A lot of times we hear background talk, we hear talk from things that not all the facts are put out, but this committee will have the opportunity to hear all the facts of what's going on and be well versed into it, because you all represent your community, and that's what we want. This is the whole purpose of this committee. As we go through, and I don't know what you're going to be doing tonight, because it's hard for me to identify, but if you look behind that initial page, McAllen has a very similar committee to y'all, and they have established their bylaws already. Like I said, there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. You can modify to fit us, and to modify to fit your individual thinkings and your group thinking, but it's just a guide. I hope you don't think that you're just going to change the name from McAllen ISD to Brownsville ISD. I think there are going to be a little more changes than that, but it certainly is a guide to doing this. And you do need to set up your bylaws. But I don't know if we'll have the opportunity tonight to do this. It's going to have a series of meetings early on by this whole group to develop this bylaws. But we have a real smart group here, I know that. And the first thing in order, I think, is to understand what the bylaws are. And if I can read it to you, or I can give you an opportunity to read it on your own, but it's something that's going to have to be done. We will assist you. We'll not leave you on your own. Drew, are you here? I don't know where you are. There you are, Drew. Drew is our public information officer, and I will assign her to whoever you all pick tonight. I haven't told you this, but you're going to have to pick at least, if not a permanent chairperson, at least an interim chairperson for this committee to start working with this. So I'll open up the floor for discussion as to what you all want to do. Do you all want to pick an interim? Do you want to pick officers tonight and then start working on the bylaws? How do you all feel? It's your meeting. I'll mediate it with you until you decide which direction you're going to be going as far as electing a chairperson. Any comments?
Why don't we select an interim for 30 days?
Well, I get our feet on the ground.
He's asking for volunteers. Does anybody want to volunteer or really want to just take this over as an interim?
Let me tell you, I'll be very honest with you. I'm just retired from the federal government, and I know that we all are very busy, especially when I was working. But I have no problem taking this on at the beginning with you all to do it, because I know it's going to take time, and I know we're running behind schedule. So I'll be more than happy to be able to start working on this and getting it going. I know that everybody's working except, I think, for Mr. De Leon. I think everybody else has a full-time job. If anybody has any objections to that, I'd certainly be able to, at least we can just get started and get running on it. And I certainly believe that we need some kind of a committee for these bylaws. We don't necessarily have to all sit down and all look. I think we all can look at them and come back within 2 or 3 days and get these 3 or 4 people together that they can put it together and then get somebody to type it for us and get it done. But I think that because of the time limit that we're looking at, because the sooner we get started, the sooner we get going. But I'd like to propose that to you all, if you all don't have any objections to it.
I move we make Butch the interim chair for a period not to exceed 30 days.
Second.
I didn't think that.
No hesitation.
Drew, did you get that down? Okay. Okay, all those in discussion on this? No? All those in favor for Bush Barbosa being the interim?
Aye.
All opposed? Bush, you're officially taking over. But I'll help you with it.
Well, I hope you do, because I notice that right away they always say,
I got dinner waiting for me.
Superintendent, what report do you have, you know?
There goes your retirement, Butch. What have you prepared for?
But I'd like to be able to, at least to be able to get us going, and so we all understand exactly, you know, where we're at, where we stand. And I think a lot of times what happens is we hear a lot in the media, we hear a lot on television and all this stuff that's going on, that it's just a lot of hearsay, a lot of people talking and a lot of doing, and I think that we need to be able to talk to one another, and talk to each other and know what's going on, and get all the information that we need to get to everybody. And I know that the email is going to be the easiest and simplest way to get to people. I hope that everybody has one. I checked, I think that most of us do. But at least to be able to communicate with one another when we can. But I think, Mr. Gonzalez, if you would just continue going as you are with the presentation that you have planned, to be able to continue in this method, and then we'll hopefully at the end we'll appoint 3 or 4 people that will take charge of the bylaws, and then we'll all read them individually and be able to contact those 3 people if somebody has something to add or delete from the ones that we have here.
And if you want to, Mr. Barbosa, once everybody signs in and gets the emails, I can get one of my staff to make copies for each one of you, so you'll know how to email each other also, in case you need to do that. I think it's a good way of communication nowadays. The technology that we have, everybody, I know everybody's busy, can't be reached sometimes, but if you read the emails like I do at night, sometimes you catch up, and it's a good way of catching up. I appreciate it, Bush. I would like to continue with the presentation, and to me it's important that you all be brought up to date. You are a bond oversight committee, and as such, in order for you to be in that capacity of advisory capacity to both administration and the board, you need to know where we're at. And you know, you all have in front of you what the school bond was, what was proposed, and what was passed. And it's just a refresher. And if you look at the inside folder, school bond propositions, and they were all passed. Proposition 1 is the issuance of a $30 million for school buildings to construct and equip 2 new elementary schools, and to purchase the necessary site for school buildings. Okay.
Go ahead.
Proposition 2, the issuance of $25 million of school building bonds to construct and equip a new middle school and to purchase the necessary site for school buildings.
Thank you.
Proposition 3, the issuance of $50 million of school building bonds to construct and equip a new high school and to purchase the necessary site for school buildings. Proposition 4, the issuance of $30 million of school building bonds to construct, renovate, acquire, and equip school facilities throughout the district, including Canales, Egley, Palm Grove, Perez, Hudson, Villanueva, and district-wide HVAC upgrades, fire alarm upgrades, ADA upgrades, re-roofing projects, and the improvement and addition of parking lots. So this is how the money is proposed to be spent. The issuance of bond has already occurred. We have already issued bonds. As a matter of fact, Lorenzo, Mr. Sanchez will be coming up in just a few minutes and tell you where the money's at, and what we're doing with the money, and who we sold it to, type of thing. Any questions you might have concerning the issuance of bonds. And so we're earning interest on it. However, we are subject to arbitrage. You don't know about arbitrage, I'll be glad to explain it to you. That means we can't make more than what we're paying on interest. So anytime we put money in the bank, we're earning 5% interest and we're only paying 4%. We don't get to keep the difference. That means we have to take the difference back to the state of Texas. we can only make as much money as what we are paying interest on. So that's arbitrage. We have to do the arbitrage to make sure that the money is paid back, that the district doesn't gain by having the money sitting there. That's the proposal of this thing. So with this in mind, what have we done so far? And where are we going? And which way are we going? At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Sanchez to start the presentation. By the way, this isn't done just by the superintendent. All those people that you see over there, they're not here to see, just to particularly because they want to see who's in the bond committee. They're here to help on the presentation. And there's a whole slew of people that I have over there that are on staff. They take a lot of time to be able to develop and set out a program on this bond. So, Mr. Sanchez?
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Welcome, everyone. I think I know most of you. If you go back to this packet that we handed out to you, let's flip over to the first section. That's going to be my presentation. We do have various individuals that are going to be presenting to you. We have facilities from construction, we have Secretary from transportation, we have possibly the biggest impact of why we do the things that we do. We have research and assessment, Raul Vasquez and his staff. So I wanted to present to you something that you can go in tomorrow morning over coffee and look at these numbers and just something really easy and kind of digest. So we try to put to you on one page. If you look at the first bullet, the bond payment. Our bond payment this year for the most recent bond, the 2006, you need to remember we have another bond that we had back in 99. This is just for this particular bond. The state is providing $7.5 million, and locally we're providing 2.3. So that's an annual payment of 9.8. So, and notice to the right, that's the percentage. We went to the voters when we went out for the bond program, and we said we're really giving our money 25 cents on the dollar. Well, it actually came out to about 23 cents on the dollar. And at this time, I'm going to just switch all the way down to the term leverage at the bottom. I think all business people that understand leveraging your funds, leveraging your dollars, use somebody else's money to do what you need to do, and keep your working capital. Well, look at the leverage. If I bought an acre of land for $40,000, because you need to remember the leverage, I only have to put up what? 23 cents on the dollar. So what is my cost locally? It's like buying an acre of land for $9,400. Have we done leverage? Yes, the voter said, leverage your money. We're giving you the opportunity to go and leverage the school money. That's why we voted yes on the bond. Leverage what you have paid locally. And I don't need to go to the rest of the explanation. I think you can figure out that as we go to an acre of land for $100,000, with local funds, actually, we're putting up $23,000. Moving back up to the timeline, we do have about 3 to 4 years. We have sold our bonds, and we went to an investment called Flex Repo. And with NBIA, one is an investment group, they were bidded out by our consultants, and our investments on this Flex Repos were getting about 4.7 rate of return. Our money, all $135 million, 4.7. Our arbitrage is 4.1. So there's a difference there between 4.7 and 4.1. The difference is that arbitrage. We can't keep that money. The IRS wants it. Okay? So you're saying, well, we could take this money and invest. Sure, I can take money, invest and get a 6% return. I can only keep my arbitrage, which is 4.1. So it doesn't make any difference. Somebody else will make money if we invest our money in a higher rate. Also, next bullet is our tax rate. Good conversational piece. Our tax rate, for the longest time, we hadn't changed it until the legislature says, you know what, we're going to have tax relief. But you know, that didn't really happen, right? We had tax relief by lowering the tax rate, property values shot straight up. I think the governor planned that, so that's okay. But as you see, our current rate, we did reduce our tax rate, okay? We're at 148 total. If you notice, the M&O rate is 131. Well, one of the ways that the legislature also came back and said, we're going to give you some of these golden pennies. If you go to the MNO, that's our maintenance and operation. That's the money we use to operate the district with on a daily basis. We can use this money for whatever purpose we so decide. By the way, when we turn on the lights in the morning and by 5 o'clock, it's $1 million a day to operate the lights. And that's, when you look at numbers, that's how much it takes to operate this district. Well, really the MNO was basically a 47. But the board voted for us to leverage another 4 pennies that the legislature said we needed to do. Well, those 4 pennies brought us an additional $11 million of revenue. Again, leveraging our resources. And then if you go to the right of it, and of course the debt rate, that 8 pennies, almost 9 pennies, that's what it takes from tax collections to pay the old bond and the new bond. So it takes about roughly 9 pennies for us to make our annual payment, okay? And we pay interest in February and August, 2 interest payments a year. So go to the right and you see we multiply our tax rate by the property values, and you know that are adjusted. You'll see that we collect approximately what? $56 million in local taxes. So when somebody says, I'm a local taxpayer, how much do I contribute to the operations of the district? Well, $56 million. Drop down to budget. What is our budget? $451 million. $451 million is what the budget for this district is.
Since we're recording this, we need to be for you to be by a mic.
Oh, okay.
So can you get back there?
Get back over here? All right, so I can't stand still. But I guess I'll have to do it. Okay. Yeah, I gotta have my hands. Anyway, as I was saying, we have 56 million, and if you compare the budget, you notice we have 451. Look at your budget revenue sources, and you see local 69. You notice it's a little more than than taxes, because we don't get all our local resources just strictly from tax. Okay, we only get 56,000. By the way, it's interesting if you look at the tax collections. Let me point something out here. The funding formulas for the state of Texas are kind of complicated for school finance. Anytime I don't collect $1, we lose close to $5. So any taxpayer, and we got over $9 million at delinquency. So if we don't collect those delinquent taxes, we're losing $54 million. Okay, that's just the nature of how the state finance laws are written, and how that's why we have to hire delinquent attorneys to try to get us, for every dollar we collect, we're going to get another $5 or $6 added to our coffers. Going down to appraisals and market values. You see there where it says strategic location, the 3 L's. The three most important things are what? Location, and location, and then location. I think Mr. Tipton would agree with that. And so, there's a difference between appraisal and market value. I can get somebody to come and appraise, say, I want to buy this home in this particular area of town, and I do some comparables in the same neighborhood and get a comparable. But market is very different. Market value is what a willing buyer and a willing seller agree upon. Could it be appraisal value? Yes. Could it be higher than appraisal value? Yes. Could it be lower? Yes. But it is basically what a willing buyer and a willing seller have agreed. Then I want to drop down to, so when we buy these lands and investments in land, what is it that we keep in mind? We're keeping in mind where the growth in this community is at. We keep in mind that we want to do the best we can with our dollar. I cannot bus students, every student. Look down to transportation. Look at the transportation. We budget $14 million for transportation. The state only sends us $2.6 million. Almost $12 million we have to take from instruction to get our students back to school and back from school. So if we don't strategically place our schools where we need them, where the growth of the city is at, then I'm going to incur a what? A fixed cost of doing business over here, because now I got to buzz them. So it's kind of a trade-off. Do I build a school where I know the development is at? There's growth. We have the statistics. We have the demographics that point that that's where we need them. You know, and then the way the state funds us, they don't fund every mile that we do, and Mr. Chirinos will tell you a little bit more about that shortly. So we don't get a dollar for dollar, we get less than a dollar. And then we have a standard, we want to build elementary campuses with 750 students. Middle schools anywhere between 800 or 900, and possibly high schools at about 2,200 students. But if I wanted to relieve Vermilion Elementary's over there by Rivera, I need another elementary. We have to build 2 with bond money. I certainly am not going to provide relief for Vermilion if I build a school towards Villanueva or San Pedro on Military Highway. I need the school close to Vermilion, and because I need it there strategically, I need to pay the price that I need to pay with leverage funds. Because I believe that is, we are managing the resources of the district wherever we feel that we need to manage those resources and put them to good use. Now, and then the last bullet that I have there is at the very bottom, administration's recommendation. The land purchases that occurred recently, I was one of the committee members. Mr. Pineda, he is the assistant superintendent for Human Resources, our superintendent, Hector Gonzalez, and Oscar Tapia, who is in charge of facilities. That is a committee of 4. We have toured every alley, every place, everywhere in this town, trying to find the most appropriate place. Sure, I could find some place over here with $6,000 an acre, no roads, no highway, no infrastructure, and so on and so on, and say, well, I made a great deal. A great deal of progress, I don't know. A return for our investment, I don't know. Now, with that being said, because I can go on forever, so I'm going to stop, and now I will field any questions from anyone on any of these topics or anything that you would like for me to answer. Yes, sir.
So this is the first time I've seen this budget. Where does the $13 million come from that you collect locally?
Those are basically internal transfers in. When we, like for example, for transportation and special ed, whenever we have to take monies from one area and subsidize those programs, we call those transfers in. It's our own money. Any other?
One thing I want to add
question?
to Mr. Sanchez's comment is that I think it's very important for us to know, we're here to educate children. That's the number one thing. I think the public authorizes to issue bonds to build schools, build classrooms, and in curriculum, that's my bread and butter, as they say. That's what I want to do. We want to educate kids. We want to provide the best education. He brought out something about Vermilion, Gonzales, Hudson, Paderes, Ituria. You're talking school with over 1,000 kids. All research will tell you that's not conducive to positive learning. Are kids learning? Yes. Is this the best possible environment? Absolutely not. One principal for 1,200 kids. Can you imagine that? Elementary kids. Pre-K to 5. Optimum, about 500 to 600. That's where we should be. The board developed goals and objectives this year. And we sat down and developed those board and objectives. And one of our goals is to bring those schools down to 750 students in elementary. It's not optimum, but it's close to optimum. It's a lot better than 1,200 to 1 principal. So when we look at it, we're looking at that. Middle schools, all our schools are over 1,000. We should be at 800 to 900. So we're trying to bring down the middle schools to about 800 and 900 students. And high schools like Hanna with 3,000, well, I think all our schools are over 2,400 this year, Harlow High School. That is certainly not optimum. It's not the positive environment for student learning. So we're trying to keep our schools to below 2,200. We have 5 high schools with over 12,000 students. That's the truth. I mean, I'm not sitting here telling you that we don't. That's why we're desperate to have the 6th high school. So with that in mind, this is why our numbers are there. We have those numbers in mind to produce optimum learning as best we can here in Brownsville ISD. I like to have my elementary 600. I love to do that. But I know that's going to be very hard to do. But to have 1,200 kids at Vermilion Elementary is just not right. It's not right for kids. And that's what we need to do. To have Hudson that was built for 800, to have close to 1,200 kids is just not right. It's just not. Ituria, close to 1,100 kids when it was built for 750. Just not right to do those things. We have more portables that we can take a stick at. So with that in mind, this is why those numbers are here. What are the standards? What are we looking at? Those are the goals we develop. So this is why with the need of school. So we do this bond issue. A lot of it is not even for growth. It's just to try to get us back to where we need to be. And to remove some of those portables from those schools.
When you say you have the time limit, the time limit, I guess, started once we got them and we started, we sold them, I guess, or we started buying them. What is this deadline that we look at? Or what is the deadline? Is it the deadline that they have to be built? The deadline that they have to be, the contract has to be out on them? Or what are we looking at as far as date is concerned?
It's a combination of both. It's a combination of finances, because when we invested our money in this flex repos, we said we would be drawing down, and our payments within a period, we said 3, but we went up to 4, because we knew we had to build a high school, and it takes about that long to build a high school. If we started tomorrow, it takes us about 3 to 4 years to get that high school in. So that is our time frame. And there are also some of course, the Attorney Generals, and they look very closely at this. By the way, there is a checks and balances of how we spend our money. Did we do what we promised? Yes, as a matter of fact, today I received a letter from TEA that they're going to do a desk audit on the 99 bonds. Now they want to know, well, okay, did you really do what you said you were going to do? And so the state of Texas and the Attorney General's office, and with the TEA, has these checks and balances built in so that we have to now show proof. And so Mr. Tapia and myself, we will be working on responding to their inquiry as recently as of December. So we're going to do that. So there are checks and balances. You as a committee are checks and balances. Our board is checks and balances. And of course, myself, I am the gatekeeper. I make sure that the funding sources go for the intended purposes. Yes, sir, Mr. De Leon.
Tax relations are 86 million. Then on the local budget revenue sources, you got 69 million. And then you come up with a transfer in 13 million. Where does this extra 13 million come from?
That's the same question that Mr. Tipton asked. That's our internal transfers in, transfers out.
The transfer in is 13 million down below.
Right. Oh, you're talking about the local revenues on top?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, those are.
You've got an extra 13 million. Where did
Right.
it go?
Those are, we have, for example, audit sales, and we have other revenues that we do locally. They're not just necessarily coming directly from taxes, right? We have, fees and things that we charge, yes.
Mr. Sanchez, by building these campuses, the high school, the elementaries, that's going to be alleviating some of the other campuses?
Yes, and what I like to do, if Mr. Barbosa, with your permission, is I think once we go through the program, you'll see exactly where we're going to be alleviating this needs, and where we're going to be alleviating the needs that we have. And it's really important for you all to see why we picked the sites that we picked, and who's being affected and how it's being affected. And Mr. Barbosa, I don't know if you want to introduce Mr. Leal. He just joined us.
I'm sorry, Mr. Leal. Everybody introduced themselves when they came in. Joe G. Leal, one of the committee members of the committee. What we decided we're doing is they just elected me for interim for 30 days just to be able to get it started, we're looking at the bylaws. We're going to work on the bylaws together. The superintendent is making a presentation so we come up to par exactly where we're at, how we're going to do it. And this is where we're at right now, so we can get the deal going. Later on, we're going to be able to continue going and setting up when we meet. We're going to set up the committee to do the bylaws, and you're basically up to par at this point. You missed very little as far as the figures are concerned, but these are just bond money that's coming in, the budget, how it's being worked and how we're doing it, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
But
And I'm sorry that I'm late. I just got out of another meeting, so I said straight over here.
Thank you for being here.
Now, the next really important section that's coming up here, and you have lots of color in your handout. Raul Vasquez and his department are going to show you the demographics, student density, populations. So we're going to have a map up here also, and you have maps that will correlate to what you have there, and we'll have a pointer up here to do that.
Our department is in charge of looking at the demographics of the school district. We're also in charge of zoning with the assessment department, and we also look at density of where the city is growing. You also have to understand that when we look at growth for schools and areas, we estimate at the growth of a household at 2.5 students per household. And that's how we figure out how many students belong as to where. Now, Mr. Estrada, my assistant, will be going through some of this stuff right now to show you how we calculate the density. But what we need to start right here is that we're looking at an elementary and a middle school in this area and an elementary in this area. Now, the thing that we need to let you know right off the bat is that here you have Iturria and here you have Ortiz. Now, you have Iturria and Stillman up here, and you have a main highway right here. So that means that all those students going to those schools have to be transported by bus. They cannot walk. When you look at Ortiz, it's basically the same thing. We built a school with a main road here. There's no way they can walk. There's a resaca on this side. So that school is totally bused, or the parents bring it to them.
The exception of Quail Hollow.
Excuse me?
With the exception of
Yeah, yes, exception of Quail Hollow that's there. So unfortunately, when we built those schools, if we have to say anything, we built them on the wrong side of the highway. Okay? So if we're looking at these two areas right here, and Mr. Estrada will go, because you have some demographics. Mr. Ben, you want to go ahead and start going through the demographics so that we'll get a better idea? If you go to start on page 4, please.
Good evening, everyone. When we talk about density, we're talking about the number of students in a given area. Okay, we're not talking about adult bodies. So the numbers, as we go through the presentation, it refers only to students in that given area. And if you start on page 4, we're looking at section A, which is right in here, goes along here, and up this the proposition, that's Morrison Road, along Alton Glore, and then down along Paris Street in this section here. In that area, we have approximately 671 to 700 elementary students alone. Additionally, we have 208 to 230 middle school students and 187 to 210 high school students. Now that's just in this area right in here, section A. If we go to the next page, page 5, and we look at section B, which is right along here, this is Morrison Road. It's right here, the section in blue. In that area, we have 193 to 200 elementary students. We also have 76 to 80 middle school students, and additionally 71 to 80 high school students. In section C, which is right across, my battery is dying.
Right across the Julia, right there.
Thank you. Right in there, we have approximately 201 to 210 elementary kids. We also have 82 to 90 middle school students. We also have 49 to 60 high school students. Okay? Now, section D, right in this area, has not been, there is no construction going on at the moment, but they are putting in the infrastructure, they are putting in the streets, and they're getting ready to subdivide it. using the numbers that Mr. Vasquez told you, using that 2.5 students per household, you can expect anywhere between 1,200 to 1,500 students in that area. You're going to look at anywhere between 600 to 750 elementary students. You're going to look at 300 to 375 middle school students and 300 to 375 high school students. Now, if you look on page 7, we look at the combined number of the different areas. If we combine just the areas that are developed right now or actually have construction on them, sections A, B, and C, presently we have 1,065 to 1,110 elementary students. We also have 366 to 400 middle school students, and we also have 307 to 350 high school students. Now, if you include the numbers from section D, those populations jump to 1,665 to 1,860 elementary school students alone. You will also have 666 to 775 middle school students and 607 to 725 high school students. Okay? Yes, sir.
Point out where the Expressway 77 and the railroad tracks run in that.
It's further south.
Further south.
It's further south. It's
right down here.
You see that one?
Yeah.
Right.
Right there, that one is where the railroad tracks
Yeah.
are.
If you look,
That line.
if you look at that map, sir, right there, right here is Home Depot and Academy, right there.
So we're still over on the other side of the road.
Yeah, so we're on the other side of the main highway. There would be no major highway for parents or buses to cross.
Now, we had a question as to what will the construction of these schools, how will it affect the schools in the area? As Mr. Vasquez pointed out, we do have Ituria and Ortiz in the area. If you look on page 8, you will see basically an enrollment trend for these campuses. You'll notice starting in 2003, 2004 school year, Ituria had 1,251 students. When Ortiz opened the following year, it opened with 709 students, reducing the population of Ituria to 756, which is fairly comfortable. But the year after that, Ituria jumped up. Their enrollment went up by almost 19%. They were already back up to 898. The year after that, which is 2006, 2007, they're already at 1,081. Ortiz, after that first year, when they opened at 709, they showed an increase of 8.3% students. Now, their population has relatively remained constant. This year, they did have a slight decline, okay? But we are expecting for their population to go up by 4% next year, putting them at about 779 students. Now, if these two schools were to open, yes, sir?
Is it decline because they went to middle school or because people moved out of the area?
If I may answer that.
Yes.
When we see that we are needing to shift lines, to be able to put kids in different schools to be able, so they won't grow in life, we call what we do rezoning. So we tell them, you're not going to that school next year, you're going to a different school next year. So we look at where we're at, and we were able to shift some of those kids that were going to Ortiz either to Garden Park or to Villanueva. We're trying to keep them as low as possible without letting them explode. But we know they're coming.
The other thing, sir, is that we try is not to bring in portables. And we would have had, Ortiz doesn't have portables. And we don't want to bring in portables to Ortiz. So that's why we remove some of those students and move them over to Garden Park.
Now, if the two schools were to open, how would that affect Ituria and Ortiz? Basically, in 2008 and 2009, the enrollment to Ituria would be approximately 690 students. The enrollment at Ortiz would be around 663, and the enrollment at the two new schools would be anywhere between 500 to 550 students, all campuses with room to grow.
And then the other thing that needs to be very important here is that these schools would be walking schools, except for the special needs students that we transported. I know that, I think Mr. Sanchez will allude to that later, there's a property here that would be bought so that students would have access into the school area there. So they wouldn't be needing to be transported, and that would save a lot of cost for us, because
The board did approve the purchase of an empty lot that was there. Thank God there was one. to be able to open it up, to put sidewalks, to be able to have, instead of going all the way up to Elton Road to get into the property, we go in through the side. That's where Mr. Sanchez pointed to, Mr. Vasquez pointed to, which is right there by the tube. There's an empty lot there, so we could be able to access that and have it as walkers.
Yes, sir.
Have y'all had the opportunity to study the demographic fluctuations in the other elementary schools around the city? In other words, is the only growth that you're seeing in the elementary schools taking place in the areas of town that are where you see newer construction?
The majority of the growth story is in the area where we're having the new construction. We have some schools within the inner city of the old city of Brownsville that are losing enrollment.
They're losing enrollment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you said you had some schools, but with respect to, I'm just going to pick a school out of the air. Take Sharp, for instance, Sharp Elementary School. Have you all studied the demographic fluctuations of Sharp? And if Sharp were to be increasing in population, why are we not looking at trying to alleviate the pressure at the already existing schools in the older parts of town if you're not doing that at this point in time?
In this point in time, Sharp is pretty stable. We could bring in students into Sharp from other areas of town.
I just used that as a hypothetical. What I meant to say was, are we only looking at putting new schools into areas in the new construction parts of town, or have we studied the demographic fluctuations at the already existing schools in the other parts of town?
If I may answer that.
Yes.
I've been doing that for a long time. It's been about 35 years. And let me tell you, we have. For example, we opened up Embright because we knew that area of town was growing. We had a need for Benbright. We're already over 600 at Benbright. El Jardín was close to 1,200. Southmost had grown to a number that was way beyond its capacity. Southmost was only built for about 600 kids, and it was already at over 800. We knew we were growing in that area. We also built Champion. I don't know if you know where Champion is, right on Bowie Road, right between Iowa and Minnesota, I believe. And we built that one there a few years ago because we knew the growth was there. We're trying to alleviate some of the Gonzales area, but we weren't able to do that because that area continued to grow. Right now, we know we have a problem at Vermilion and Gonzales. There's no two ways about it in Egley. We're proposing to build a brand new school. That's not our bond money. By the way, Lorenzo forgot, I thought he was going to mention that. We are building one elementary school out of local fund balance. We promised that to the taxpayers. And that one's going to be on Salida de Luna next to Garcia Middle School. And that's going to just no growth. And we know there's a subdivision going on both sides of there. We're going to have to look at more areas there. And that school is going to open up full. And it will bring Vermilion down to hopefully about 900 and Gonzales down to 900 and that one to about 800. It's going to be full. When we open up, it's full. There's no growth. There's growth. We're not even projecting growth. This is just to alleviate the area. To answer your question in a nutshell, have we looked at all the areas? Yes. Downtown area, we know we're losing. There's a possibility that I'm going to be making a very strong recommendation to the board that we close one more downtown school and open it into academy to help the dropout rate. And we're going to be looking at that. I'll present that to the board when we do a presentation on the curriculum committee meeting. That we got a school less than 300 kids, and I'll tell you which one it is. It's Resaca. Is it worth keeping open at that low numbers? So we do study the demographics of the whole city, where we're going. We also know there's good possibility of growth up to 1421. We know there's subdivisions. We travel a lot and we look a lot. So that's why we're adding a brand new library and a 10 classroom wing at Villanueva, because we know that. We know that Perez just picked up a big housing project right next to Perez Elementary. I don't know if you all know that or not. And that's going to bring a lot of students to Perez. We're going to build a classroom wing there because, hey, we got a brand new housing project there. That brings in a lot of kids. So we know the dynamics of the shifting and the dynamics of the growth. We study that very, very closely. We also know that I don't think even Bill Hudson knew that the Hudson development was going to take off as fast as it did. But we're short of school there, and he's going to get to that one. This is just a presentation on that generally. So to answer your question, Mr. Rodriguez, we do study the demographics of the whole community and the whole city. it's hard to keep up because we just don't have the financing to do all the keep up. That is why we have to come back with bond issues, back to the community to keep going where we need to go.
So you're satisfied that the work that you've done with respect to studying these population fluctuations and placing these schools in the areas that you are recommending them to be placed are best suited to deal with the pressure of increased populations in the schools citywide?
That's correct. And one more thing that I want to add here in this particular area for all, because you're going to need to know this as we look at it. Those areas that they haven't talked about, was it Hispana, Richardson?
Yeah.
We're not even taking that into consideration yet. We know they're going to develop it. We know it's there. We have no land for those schools yet, but we know it's going to happen. When those development comes in, those schools that we build, we know we're going to have at least one more elementary somewhere in there, just to take care of that area. We're not even taking that into consideration. However, we are looking right now because we know there's some potential development there. It's like when we bought the land for Ben Bright. Everybody said, why'd you buy over there? We knew we were growing in that area. So we're just growing in those areas. Yes, sir.
Mr. Gonzalez, I guess, you know, you've been at this for a long time and you're kind of an expert at this. And as far as trying to determine, you know, the growth of the city, the growth of the population, and then kind of figuring out how many schools you're going to need to kind of be ready for the growth. And I guess you have different models that you've used in the past, and maybe some models have worked and some have not. But I would think that if you look at the growth of the city of Brownsville as a whole, and then try to just extrapolate, you know, how many, you know, students you're going to have, and you're going to buy, say, 30 acres, or you're going to buy 10 acres, you know. In other words, my question is do you ever anticipate, you know, in the future, a certain amount of land that you're going to need for growth based on the number of schools that you're going to need, as opposed to maybe purchasing certain acres today and then waiting to see what the growth is tomorrow, and then you go buy another so many acres, and then you have the problem of where do we buy it, because we just don't have the location. And so I just don't know if you all have had strategic planning in that particular area as to determining what's the best approach to this problem.
To answer your question, Mr. Padilla, I'm going to be real honest with you. Yes. The answer is yes. We had done that for many years. I've done that for many years. Unfortunately, and I'm going to be real honest with you, the last 4 or 5 years, for whatever reason, administration did not want to take that direction and to going into buying land where we needed it. Well, I was taken out of that area for a while. A couple of years I was taken out of operations and didn't have that opportunity. But Mr. Tapia and I have always studied that. We knew where we were going. We had some land bought already for certain areas. So as a matter of fact, at one time I said, don't sell a particular piece of land that we already had, and it was sold anyway. I said, because we're going to need it for a school. I know, just wait 5 years, you're going to need it. But sometimes we're not in full control of what we can do. But the administration's recommendations are to, and we are looking right now, Mr. Tapia and I and Mr. Sanchez and staff are looking at other areas that we know we're going to have growth in. And we are going to be bringing some more purchases, proposed purchases to the board in the future, because we know where the growth areas are going to be and where we're going to need to be at.
Right now, let's just say an elementary school, how many acres do you need for an elementary school?
For an elementary school, you need approximately 15 acres.
15 acres?
And for a middle school, you need about 30 to 35. And a high school, 80 is the minimum. Let me give you an example. Lopez High School, built on 75 acres. We're using every square foot of it. Because high schools have softball, baseball, soccer, track, football fields, tennis courts, you name it. They have to use it. A lot of parking areas for those people out there. So 80 acres is the minimum you can get by with. We would prefer 100, but we can do it on 80. That's what it takes.
That's a big chunk of land.
It's a big chunk of land, but that's what it takes now, especially when you have, and I'm going to bring it out, it's Title IX. If you do it for the boys, you have to do it for the girls. And there's no, it's got to be equal. You can't discriminate. And I like that, because I have daughters. And I think they should have just as much facilities as my 2 boys. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. So I thought all the time that they should have the same facilities equally divided among themselves. So when you look at a high school, you look at the athletics, there's more to it in high school. There's a lot of athletics involved. There's a lot of extracurricular activity. There's drama, there's, theater, you name it. Everything's got to go into a high school when you don't in an elementary.
Let me ask a question. In terms of the impact of the kids that come and hop over the border to be educated, what impact is that to us? And can we do anything about it? Because that may seem a way to alleviate some of the stress problem. If not, for the next 100 years, we're going to continue going. And I'd like to see it only as a growth in Brownsville. That'd be great, but that's just probably not the fact. So is there anything that can be done about that?
Well, I know we're getting into different areas here.
I know it's not the meeting, but it's
about
something I've been curious about for a while.
But the thing about it is, you'll be surprised, the impact is minimal. Most of our kids, we have a whole department called admission and attendance. And we verify everybody's address that comes to our school when they're registered. They got to present all the paperwork. They live in our community. I'm not saying that maybe 1 or 2% aren't skipping across the border on a daily basis, but 98% are here and they live here. And we have to educate them here.
Area there, were those people contacted as far as land available for future building?
Yes. Yes, they were, and they want to develop. Yeah.
What's your enrollment now, and what are you projecting in 10 years?
We have an enrollment right now of 48,000 plus students. I think it's 48,300. Our peak enrollment will probably be 48.5 this year. In 10 years, if we're not close to 60, we're not going to be anywhere. This community is growing very, very rapidly. So 10 years from now, I probably won't be here. I probably won't have this problem. It'll be somebody else's problem. But we'll be 60,000 students without.
You take that 12,000 and you divide it by 600, and you're looking at 20 more schools.
Yes. You'll be surprised. I don't know if you all know this, but the average age of a person living in Brownsville is 25 years old. That means they're going to have a lot of babies. The average age of the person in Brownsville, living in the community of Brownsville, is 25 years old. That means they're going to have a lot of kids. The community is not going to stop growing, and a lot of businesses are coming into Brownsville because they do have a young population. And we need to keep up with it, because if we want to bring a real good industry into town, the first thing they look at is your schools. And we need to have a good education, and that's part of having a good education, is having the good numbers in schools. So this is why we do these things. But if you don't mind, we'd like to continue. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Vasquez.
Yeah, it's fine.
But I do want to make that point, that area that he didn't point to is still there. It's not going to go away.
Or the bottom part over here.
Yeah.
On page 9 of your booklet, you can see the enrollment trends for the middle school there at Stillman. Stillman opened its doors in 2004-2005 with approximately 774 students. After that first year, the enrollment went up by 42%. They went from 774 to 1,105 in 1 year. This year, in 2006-2007, right now, there are 1,248 students. That's an increase of 12% from the previous year. Now, for next year, we're expecting about another 10% growth, so they should be around 1,300. And then in 2008, if nothing happens, they'll be at about 1,510. Now, the reason we're giving them a 10% in 2008, 2009, when those elementaries open, they're going to bring their brothers and sisters. Okay? So hopefully, if we can get that middle school open in 2009, they will open their doors with approximately 800 students each.
What is the time limit to be on an elementary and a high school?
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, time, like I said, we're a little bit behind the 8 ball here. We would have like to have architects by now already design our schools, but fortunately, we're not there. But it'll take you, a high school, it'll take you a full 2 years for construction. And Terry Ray's here, he can tell you that. An elementary takes a good 12 months to build an elementary. We can't build a middle school in less than 15 to 16 months. 18 is comfortable. So it takes you about that long to build those schools. And to kid ourselves, if we don't start construction this summer for the elementaries, we're not going to do them. It'll be 2 years for the middle school and the high school. We're just not going to be able to complete them in 12 months. So once we go through the process of selection architects and the design, and we can bid them out, sometime in May or June to construct in August, start construction in August, then we'll be able to finish. Yes.
Project a second school district? Going to stay under BISD?
This, to be honest with you, Mr. Tipton, it's in order for a school district to divide itself, you have to petition TEA and do the whole thing. And that's not the trend the state legislature is going. As a matter of fact, the state legislature is looking at one time at county-wide districts, which would be horrible for Cameron County. But will Brownsville divide itself? No. It will continue, and we have a lot of areas of growth, a lot of potential for growth. I don't know if people know it, but if we go up in the northwest area, and we go all the way to Highway 100, that's a lot of area, and we go all the way down south, and there's still a lot of development over there. So we can almost double our size without any problem. So you're asking for 10 years from now, it'll be 60. 20 years from now, you better be looking at 80 to 90,000 kids.
About 15,000 teachers.
Yes. And this is what this community needs to look at. And we need to just keep on going forth and look at the best situation and try to control our costs as much as possible. And we don't want to repeat mistakes. That's one thing we don't want to do, is repeat mistakes. We already know some of our blunders, and we don't want to repeat those blunders.
The next section of town that we have to look at and has a big impact on 6 schools is this section of town. This is Paides Line Road. This is 802. And right in this section here, if you go to page 12, we are already proposing to build an elementary which will be right behind Garcia Street, Garcia Middle School. So once we build that elementary there, and hopefully we can start it in time and finish by 2008, then we're talking about relieving schools that are here. Now, we have to bring this up too. We own property right here next to Gallegos. But the issue there is that by putting an elementary next to an elementary, you're not solving a problem. You're creating a problem. So on page 12, we looked at it, and we would have a zone that would take in around that area right there. Now, I have to make this very clear to this committee, is if we do that, Gallegos will become a low income school because of the population that's there. We try to keep all our schools mixed in. We don't want just low income students coming there. We want to diversify as much as we can. So yes, we have the property there, but it's not the most conducive place to build a school. Now, if you go to page 13, we came up with another little scenario. The best place to probably build a school would be somewhere in this section right here. And of course, we don't own property there yet. But that would give you a better breakdown of the population that's there. And once you build a school in this area, and plus finishing this school, then you're relieving 6 schools that are extremely overpopulated. If you turn over to page 14, you will see what the enrollment is for Hudson. And if all we have to do is go to this school year. Hudson's at 1156. Gallegos is at 788. Paredes is at 1181. Burns is at 1178. Vermilion is at 1217.
None of them are conducive for that.
They're all the schools right in here are extremely overpopulated. And then if you go, and if we finish the schools by August 08, then you will see a drastic drop. It's not as big a drop as we would want, but it is a big drop of the 6 schools that are here. But what I think I need to really emphasize is that by putting a school here, you're creating a problem. You can't have 2 elementary. Yes, sir.
You said you do have property or do not have property?
We own property next to Gallegos.
Is that in Brownsville Country Club?
No, we own property next to Gallegos Elementary, which is behind Cameron Park.
But you're looking for some.
We would love to have, if we would have property in here somewhere, so that we could build a school that would be more conducive to the breakdown that we need. When you put 2 elementary schools to each other, number one, you're going to, like I said, you're going to have a school that's going to be low income. Number 2, you're going to have really a zoning problem. It could get to the point, like, just to give you an example, here's a street. This students go to this school, this students go to this school, but they're in the same street. Well, because of zoning, you have to do that. Then you're also going to cause a big problem with busing, because that's a school that you place here would have to be a busing school, just like Gallegos is. Because right in here, there's a big ditch in that area there. And if you were to place a school somewhere over here, that would be a walking school. Yes, we could just, just a walking school that would be there.
The problem with what we're looking at here, of course, it's all about doing the right thing. Sometimes it's hard to do the right thing because of cost and public opinion, but it is, building a school next to Gallegos, yes, we have some land there facing Dana Road. You build it there, it's an injustice to students. I'm going to tell you that right now. If we have to, if we're forced into it, we will. But is it the right thing to do? No. And I'll be very adamant. I'll tell the board, I don't mind saying it. It's not the right thing to do. I will abide by the direction that's given.
Is that because what's the rationale for that?
Because you don't want all Cameron Park kids in one school. Right now, Cameron Park is divided into Gallegos,
Burns,
and Paderes. And that's what the whole system is concerning educating kids. It's part of the education process. You don't want just a certain type of population in one campus. So you try to diversify. The best thing to do is to build a school in the country club area. We used to have land there. I'm sure you all remember that at one time. For some reason, it was sold. I'm not going to go into the reasons, but it was sold. We would like to purchase it back, but the cost is high. And Mr. Tapa will tell you go into the cost of land. Cost of land is not cheap. And that's the bottom line part of it. People know what their land is worth. You asked about Pablo Quizal. We looked at that area. $6 to $7 a square foot. They're not selling it by the acre anymore. Selling it by the square foot. And you look at $6 a square foot, you're looking at $250,000 an acre. Now, along Paderes line, we found some land at about $3 to $350 a square foot, which runs you about $130,000 to $140,000 an acre. We're looking at some property inside the Brownsville Country Club at about $3 a square foot. Now, you add that up, you're talking about $120,000, $130,000 an acre. You want to buy 10, 12 acres minimum, put it in maybe a two-story elementary or something to get the playground area in and everything. You're talking about spending a little over $1 million for land. Is it worth it? Some people will say it's not. The administration says yes, because it's a long-term investment on education, where it should be. So long-term, it's a one-time cost. You put a school somewhere on Dana Road, you might find cheaper land, but you're going to transport kids every day at a very high cost. And Mr. Seniors will tell you that cost. People don't understand how much it costs every day we run a bus. It costs over $2 a mile to run a bus. And the state doesn't reimburse you that.
Do you have excuse me, Mr. Rosales, do you have a model school that is at the right level of transportation cost and the right infrastructure, that's like your model school?
We don't have one right now. Some of the schools in the southmost area are excellent for not costing me a lot to operate, and that's Cromac and Castañeda. I know they're side by side, but that's all walking schools because the neighborhoods just lay out just right. Morningside is another neighborhood school in the southmost area. So you look at Aiken, all that back area just walks across. We put sidewalks and they just walk into that area. So there are some schools that are very strategically located that we like, and those are low budget schools as far as it's just costing us to operate them, but not a lot of transportation cost. So when we look at it, we like to do that. We like to have schools where it's low transportation cost. And so yeah, we did have some in those areas that are doing. We tried to make some other schools. One of the high costs is Ituria. Extremely expensive. That's all 100% busing. It's the wrong side of the street. It's just on the wrong side of the street. The state says if you have to go across that major highway, you got to bus them. That's the law. But they say because you built it there, if you're not 2 miles away, we only pay you 10 cents on the dollar for busing the kids. We're not going to pay you $1 on the dollar. So you have to really find strategic locations for your schools. So one of the schools that we did a walking school And I'm real proud of that, was Champion. Champion's a walking school. I know the city got a little bit upset at me because we built it there because Bowie Road wasn't wide enough or whatever, but I needed it there because of walkers. And that's where we did Champion, because it was a walking school and it became very cost-effective for us. So that's where we're going at.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
with regards to all the properties that BISD owns right now and the facilities that the schools that you're going to have to build, is it going to be a requirement to buy land for each school that you build?
For the most part, yes. We don't have land right now for the schools that we're proposing. Well, we do have them. We haven't bought. We're in the process of buying. But are we going to, do we have more land available where we need the schools? No. It's not where we need them. We do have a couple of sites that we bought that we think in the future we're going to need. We have one right off Boca Chica in Medford, corner of Boca Chica and Medford. We have 12 acres there for an elementary. We also have we bought some land next to Palm Grove, because we know Palm Grove is growing. It went from 400 to 600 and 700, so we know we're going to have to expand that school and possibly sometime in the future build a middle school there. So we bought 20 acres attached to Palm Grove. So we do have some Zavaleta property. We call it Zavaleta property because that's where the owner was when we bought it way back in the early 80s. And that's down on 511 on the south side of town. And we do have the Dana Road property we're talking about, which is not really conducive for an elementary school. We bought the land because they sold it to us all at one time at a very reasonable price a long time ago. We bought that one with the anticipation of putting a school there, and that came in at a real reasonable rate. Other than that, we really don't have any other properties that are there just for school purposes.
Yes, sir.
No.
No.
How far do you have to live to be bused?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
I'll answer that question, but the public will have the opportunity at the end to ask questions because this is a committee meeting unless Bush wants to open up to the public. I don't think so.
We need to find out exactly how we're going to be running
But
the meeting.
but it takes,
for the time
it's 2
being,
miles.
it's just within the committee itself.
2 miles.
So we get going.
2 miles for everybody's sake. How far do you have to be eligible for school busing? 2 miles.
When you asked a question, sir, about Cameron Park a while ago, just to give you an idea, in the Cameron Park area alone, we have 1,100 elementary age students. Okay? 1,100 elementary age students. That's 2 elementaries right there by itself with just a population. Now, if we were to open these 6 schools plus the other 2 in the other side of town by August 08, and we're going, I'm telling you from the demographics that we're working in, if we open them by August 08, we're going to be relieving these 6 schools plus the other 2 schools that are on the other side of town, and you all have to understand that you've got Garden Park and you've got Benavides close to that. So once you start doing that, it's kind of like a domino effect. The other schools get reduced too because we start moving students. When you start reducing Hudson and Gonzales, you're looking at Egley, you're looking at all those schools that are there. So we start reducing the population of those schools. But again, from what we've come up with, all the statistics that we've given you are based on the fact that we open those new schools by August 08 in order to meet that deadline of reducing those enrollments. If we don't, then we have to back everything up. Any questions? Yes, sir.
If you don't, I'm understanding that you're in the process of doing all that you're talking about. Is there any delay that we need to know about that prevents this? I mean, as I understand from what you're talking about, you're in the process of buying the land, hiring architects, and putting these schools in line. Am I right?
Mr. Gonzalez would have to answer that question.
That is correct. We have already purchased the land on Salida de Luna.
Right here.
That's going to alleviate Gonzales and Vermilion. That's not a bond money. That's out of local money. We're going to be building that one. We bought that one out of local money. We do have the land under contract and that's the map behind you that we originally looked at. That's across from Ituria and close to Ortiz. That's under contract. And unless the board reverses its decision, we're going to continue with that and put those schools there that we need to put there. And we're having problems with, and I'll be honest with you, is that to relieve Paredes and Gallegos and Hudson. That's a real shore for us. And I tell you why. The cost of land there is very, very high. We've knocked on every door we can. We've begged, we've done everything we could with everybody that's out there that's got the right size of land. And nobody wants to give it to us at where somebody would raise their eyebrows. They're looking at $3 a square foot. And people need to understand that we need the school there. And it's hard to swallow that pill. Of saying, I'm going to pay $1 million to build the property to build a school, but that's where it's needed. It's unfortunate, but the development, I don't know if y'all have gone up Dana Road lately or not. I mean, even the city's building, I mean, everybody's there. Everybody, we just need the schools. But nobody's willing to give us or sell us the land. And at what, maybe I wouldn't say at a reasonable price. To them, it's reasonable. To us, it says in the long run, it's the best thing we can do is to purchase that land to build schools. But it's hard for board members just to take it and say, yeah, we need it there, and it's going to cost us that. But you know, the community is very well aware that those schools are way overcrowded. There's nothing we can do. We need to build the school. Like I say, the worst scenario we could possibly do is go build that school on Dana Road. Because then you got back-to-back schools that's not helping anybody. And you're talking about a traffic jam going up and down Dana Road. Not to mention not putting the kids where they need to be. It's just not right for kids. If we're going to do what's right for kids, then we need to build a school in another area. So the other schools are taken care of except for that. So we're looking for you all to give us advice and to give us feedback and to give the board feedback. This is what you all are here for. That's the whole purpose. Yes.
You know, with the expansion east on Morrison Road, which goes up behind Paredes, that you mentioned $3 a square foot. I know that's what it's going for. I've also been quoted that. And in my opinion, you need to get it before it goes to $6 and you're behind.
I agree with you 100%, and maybe when you all get ready to address the board through a committee, and Bush is now the chairperson in an interim basis anyway. He might not want it on a full-time basis. We need to just say that out loud, because a lot of times people put fear into people. Instead of doing the right thing, people get fearful of doing the right thing, and we cannot be fearful of doing the right thing. And I'm one to stand up and say, this is my recommendation, and this is why, and I have no problems doing it. I can only make a recommendation. I can't make the final decision.
But I also think you also have to be discreet as to purchasing land, because if not, you know, I mean, immediately land values go up, right?
And to be honest with you, Mr. Faria, we used to be. Like I told you, we used to own property there. I'm being honest with you. Mr. Tape will tell you. I left the district to go to another district because they made me a good offer that I needed to go to. My last words, don't sell that piece of property. You're going to need it. When you have it, don't sell it. There was another piece of property that we had, 37 acres on Laredo Road. It's a real nice property. You all saw it. It's got a Resaca gated community now. We own that piece of property. We got rid of it. For whatever reasons, there was an era in there that we lapsed. Well, maybe we thought we weren't going to grow. But now that we're growing again, we're looking again in the right growth areas. But right now, we need these areas right now. These are immediate needs that we have nowhere to go with. We know where we're going to have to go to, and we're already looking in those areas and trying to get reasonable land in that area. But because we have a vision. But for right now, we need it right now, and there's only a few select pieces of properties left over that can accommodate us. That's the bottom line.
The other thing that is on our section is to talk a little bit about portables, and that's not one of the things you want to bring into a campus. It's not conducive for learning. It's not conducive for students. And I think you all need to understand this. Between the grades of kinder and fourth grade, you cannot have more than 22 to 1, 22 students to 1. That's a state law. So if all of a sudden one of these, either Ortiz or Iturria, get an influx of 22 into kinder all the way to fourth, you're talking about 5 new classrooms. And if the building does not have the capacity, that means 5 rooms, either a double portable or a single portable. And if the reason I was going to bring this up is because, remember, you asked her a question about timeline. And it's a good thing that we're moving forward with it, and hopefully the committee can help Mr. Gonzalez move forward a lot faster with it, because if we don't build by 2008, then you're talking about Ortiz getting portables, Ituria getting more portables. We can't put them there anywhere. So the only place to go would be Garden Park with portables and Benavides with portables, because those are the schools that would have to take the influx of the students that are coming in. Are there any more questions dealing with demographics?
I
Yes, sir.
noticed that most of the presentation was to the north of Brownsville. And how about the southernmost area, in which I believe 1/3 of the population lives over there?
Right now, the southmost area, we've got it pretty well taken care of. Once we put Bright in there, we relieved El Jardín, we relieved southmost. Like Mr. Gonzalez said, in the future, most likely Palm Grove, the one that's way down there, will be expanded. So we have the property there to expand that. They do have subdivisions down there that have been, but they're not really growing as fast as the ones that are growing toward the north and toward this area. The other thing that I think you all need to be very conscious of, and Mr. Tapia will go into in a minute, the only thing that's keeping Brownsville School District from growing to the north is the Resaca Rancho Viejo. That is the boundary with Los Fresnos. That's the only reason. If the Resaca wasn't there, we would grow and the district would grow that way.
We're very grateful about the Resaca, or else the woods would be ours, and we'd really be in trouble. Let Los Fresnos worry about that north side of there. Or we got the northwest side that's really in trouble.
When you look at this property here, and you look at going up 281, all the way 14, and all the way to Rancho Viejo, and all the way to 77, that's BISD property. Any other questions? At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tapia. Thank you all very much.
I think we're going to have to meet a lot and fast, quite often. It sounds like that to me.
It is.
We're going to drag our feet.
There's a lot of information that has to be going out and stuff, and I think that's one of the things that we need to find out. A time schedule of how you all want to be able to meet and how often you want to be able to meet. It's going to be an important issue. I don't want to be able to divide anybody from, you look at this and you look at that, because then we're going to miss out on the whole picture. But I think that, we're looking at situations that, maybe twice a week, that we're going to have to be able to meet till we get the ball rolling and get it going, because I think that we're really behind.
We are.
Scheduling that we have to face. And we do definitely have to meet, so I think that if we meet maybe twice a week for the time being, and get it going till we get it all set up, and maybe we can relax a little bit, but I think that if you're all willing to do it, I think that we'll be able to, and set up where it doesn't fall into days that you all may have commitments on, or, you have the meetings with the trustees. I think they meet on the first and third Tuesday of the month. And then I know they have a bunch of committee going on and stuff, but I think we have to be able to get the scheduling done together.
As a matter of fact, Bush, if I may make an announcement, this coming Monday, we have a facilities committee meeting to present this very same thing to the Board of Trustees, to the complete board, to the facilities committee, and of course all the trustees are more than welcome, and the general public also, to those committee meetings. We would request that you all be present, as many of you can, because you heard this presentation, to be able to get up and tell the board, we've heard the presentation, we know where we're going, we know which we need to go, we just need to go. We just need to proceed if we're going to proceed, and it's very important to us, and because the more we delay, the more it's gonna hinder the process to get there, and we're trying to present it in an honest and positive way. We're not pulling any strings. We know what land costs. We know what construction costs. We know we can't build elementaries at $5 to $6 million like we used to. It's going to cost us money. It's going to cost us, Ben Bright cost us $9 million, 9.4 to be exact. So we're looking at those types of costs. A middle school is going to cost you a good 15, 16 million. Now we have 25 million. I hope it doesn't cost us 25 million. But, and like Lorenzo said, that bond money was for the purchase of land too. We're very specific on it. And it's leveraging the money the way we need to get what we need to. Because if you don't, you can build a school somewhere else. I'm not going to say you can't. You can go build it up there in 1421 if you want to, and bus every kid that you want to over there. But that's cost forever and a day. It's going to cost you on buses every day. Every day you're going to put kids in buses. Then go build them out there on the flats out toward Boca Chica. Maybe get some reasonable prices over there, what people consider reasonable, but you're going to have to chip them over there. You're going to have to put kids on it, and it's safety. When we get to presentation, you'll think what safety is. I don't know if any of you live on Alton Glory, and you ever travel at 7:30 in the morning.
I walked it with a flag.
Remember? And if you see that traffic there at Ituria and Stillman, it's a nightmare. Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question. There's a lot of answers already. What is the holdup? I mean, it seems like we got a lot of answers, we got a lot of plans, a lot of time and energy and spent, and I'm sure money. So what is the holdup?
Well, the holdup is to a certain extent is just trying to get this committee going.
But even before we decided to form a committee, what is the holdup? I mean, what are we going to do next time we meet? And what do you want from the committee so we can move on? But I don't understand I mean, the presentation's good, a lot of information. We kind of get the idea, good idea to build it over here, bad idea to build it over here, kids, cost. Very good information. So what is the real holdup? I mean, do you just want to say, go, move? And
there is no holdup. The thing about it is that we promised this community that we were going to establish a committee, a bond oversight committee, that would ensure that we were doing, the administration and the board were doing the right things for kids, and they were going in the right direction. And as we go through it, the more of it is, this is just preliminary. You know, the selection of architects is important, which y'all are going to be involved in reviewing and doing. And then the actual design of the school. How fancy do you want it? How not so fancy do you want it? What type of school are we going to be looking at? And then helping the design phase of it. And then make sure that during the construction phases, if there's any change orders, anything that needs to be done, any changes that need to be done, why are we doing these things? This is the whole purpose of this committee, is to ensure that the projects are being done in accordance to what was promised to the community in a true responsible way, to be frugal with the money, and to get the most we can for our dollar. But at the same time, doing what needs to be done. And that's what it is. And a lot of times, like right now, I mean, I'm not going to sit here. Some board members, because somebody wrote an article or whatever, are saying, well, should we do it or not, because of public opinion or whatever. Our thing is, I can tell the board, I'm not changing my recommendation. I'm not doing anything, because this is what needs to be done. And I can defend what I do, because I don't gain a penny from it. I just need to do what's good for kids. And if I'm doing good for kids, I do not lose any sleep over it. And that's what I need to do. What's good for kids and what's good for this community. And that's where we need to be. And we're bringing you up to date where we are.
I agree with you. I think a lot of our decisions are going to be based on the expertise, which is you guys. So I'm not going to argue on this design, on that design, if I don't really know what's required for the school.
Right.
So, you know, I'm a little dumbfounded, I guess, as far as, okay, what exactly are we doing in this committee? Because, I mean, when you talk, I believe you. I have no reason not to. You know, but I also don't have the time or the effort or the energy to go validate it. That's what the expertise is for. You, Mr. Tapia, everybody else involved. And I think we need to support that and move forward.
I think this is the idea between the committee, that we're trying to, he is trying to tell us this is where we stand, and he's going to get our support and our expertise that we have out here to be able to tell, not only him, but to be able to tell the board members also that we're going in the right direction.
The community.
It wasn't something that just came out of his idea, and this is what it was done. And that's why he's bringing us up to par, so that we, as individuals, are coming up here and being able to advise and tell the board members and let them know, hey, the community is behind the project that's coming up, and we all are in forward, and we're going forward with it. Because I guarantee you, the way the media operates, all it takes is one person to say something, and everybody's going to listen to that one person. Big deal, one person, you know? But you've got to get the support of everybody else to say, hey, he knows what he's talking about, and we support his ideas and his wonderful thing.
You know, I'd like to compliment the group of board of trustees for suggesting this committee, because I think we have people like Terry Ray, lawyers, business people, like Mr. Tipton, and knowledgeable people that can make an input and look at the situation, and I think it's the best deal for our community. I really believe that. Thank you.
But at the same time, I think, mirroring what Joe said, I think we need to be told what is expected of us as far as what the function is of this advisory board. I appreciate the overview that we received this evening, and that's important that we start to understand the ramifications. This is all a surprise to me looking at the demographics. It's very impressive. The question I'm asking myself is, gee, where are we on the planning and zoning review process? And perhaps the city shouldn't be talking about impact fees. That's a little deal. Maybe we ought to be talking about the developers building us a school or two. I can hear Neil upset in the back already, but. However, I think we need to understand what it is that we're going to need to do so that we can start to set up some timelines and some committees to start to oversee those areas, because not all of us are going to be able to deal on land issues. There are going to be construction issues and architectural issues. I don't think I don't think this committee ought to design a school to be, in any way, shape, or form. We don't pick colors.
and that if I may, Butch, that is not the intent of this committee. The intent for this committee was to, in a general sense, review what's going on and ensuring that what we're doing is correct. To be frugal with our money, to ensure the community that we're going in the right direction, and that the investment that has been made by this community, which is a very large investment, is being adhered to. That we don't diverge from what we're supposed to be doing. That we said we were going to do these things and we were going to do it responsibly. The purpose of this committee is to ensure that responsibility is being adhered to. And I know you trust us, and I hope you trust us. And we're always doing the right thing for the community and for the kids in this district. There's no doubt about it in my mind, or else I wouldn't be here. The thing about it is we need to get the whole community involved, because education is a community process. It's not individual processes. So when I ask you to do, what is it that you're doing? It's a lot of time in your part to sit here and listen, but you need to know, because you're also the voice of this community. Because when, like you say, when somebody writes a letter to the editor or whatever, and they write a story and say, well, this guy, and they say, well, all these guys are nuts, they're just taking us for a ride. We're not. This is what we need to do. And you can validate that to a certain extent. And if you don't think we're doing the right thing, then it's your responsibility to advise us and say, you know what? You need to look at it from a different point of view, from our point of view, from our community point of view, from our banker point of view, from a businessman point of view, from an attorney's point of view, from a land developer's point of view, or whatever. And we're here to listen to that. Like I said, I've done this for umpteenth year, and I work with a lot of contractors. I know Terry Ray a long time, and we worked together to try to develop as much as we can. So we like to be frugal with our money. We like to do the right things, but we like to get community involvement, and this is your role.
I want to clear one thing up before Hector goes a whole lot further. A number of people have referred to Terry Ray. When I agreed to be on this committee, I also admitted that of the $135 million worth of bond issue work, Terry Ray Construction is excluding themselves from all $135 million. We will not be doing any of this bond money work. If we choose to change that, I'll step off this committee, but I'm here to advise the school district and won't be partaking in this stuff.
Appreciate that, Terry.
Chairman and Mr. Gonzalez, I appreciate the time that you all have taken tonight to be here. I have a prior commitment I need to leave, but I support the fact that we've started off well by selecting Mr. Barbosa to get this thing moving, and I look forward to the next meeting. Thank you all.
One thing before you do,
here, you want to give them,
be
pass these out.
To be able,
Wait,
this is going to be the list of all the people that are in the community.
Everybody get one. Why don't you email
get yours?
Email us the list.
There you go. Just the one thing, just to make sure that we do read the bylaws, and then we'll give you the name of the three people that are going to be working on it.
Fine, I'm on board, Butch.
Okay. and then we'll get back together, and I'll get to you exactly when it is that we're gonna meet.
You're gonna appoint Mr. Tipton to being part of the bylaw committee?
No. I've been on a train before, okay?
As soon as he leaves, he'll
I've
be.
been on a train before, just you don't want to be on one.
Thanks, Jim. Go ahead, officer.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. I'd like to make a little announcement. If anybody needs to go to the restroom, please feel free to get up and go
Right
while
the
we're
hall.
doing instead of us taking a long break and having to regroup. My name's Oscar Tapia. I'm the administrator for facilities, and I'm the one you're going to be working with closely with the nuts and bolts of this whole bond program, the construction, the design, and so forth. One of the reasons we want to present this, the information I want to present now is, and I think Dr. Jimenez made a good point, that he senses an urgency of this committee and trying to move forward and what's the holdup. And we're going to present some information here on some research we did on why we're recommending to buy the two properties.
Why we recommend it, already
to the board and why we're going that direction. And we've actually already started. We bought two properties, one for the high school, one for possibly an elementary, without this group even being developed. And we wanted to involve this group in the selection of properties so that when we go to the board, hey, we cleared it with the Bond Oversight Committee. They had an input. We presented. They all thought it was a great idea. It's a good location. It's a good price. These are the reasons why we're recommending it. We didn't have that opportunity on those other two properties because this committee didn't exist. And so we're having to kind of put the brakes a little bit before we close on these properties, share the information with this committee. Are we doing the right thing? Was the board advised correctly? And I think we still have the opportunity to do that with this group. And if somebody here thinks it's a really bad idea, or you know, Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Tapia went to lunch and somebody slipped something in their tea and they're not making any sense and they're off their rocker, you all have some say in saying, you know what, we don't recommend that. You don't make sense and we don't like your numbers, and your whole ideas have flaws in them. We don't think that's going to happen, but here we are going to present you with information and then you tell us what you think. Back in early October, Mr. Gonzalez was interim, I think just barely before he made being permanent superintendent, and called the team together. Mr. Lorenzo Sanchez, who's our CFO, CPA, very educated and experienced person in this district. Mr. Johnny Pineda, a long-term BISD employee, former interim superintendent, very knowledgeable in the district for many, many years. And myself, I've been here 14 years strictly with facilities. And he asked us to help him look for land for the new schools because we got to get started. We got these new schools, and we don't have the land yet. We only have two. I need 2 or 3 more. Let's get out and look for some properties. And so we had this meeting, and the information you just heard was presented by Raul Vasquez and Ben Estrada, and I think they did an excellent job, very detailed, very accurate information. So based on the information they presented to us, they recommended this is where we need the schools. So we took that information and we ran with it. Mr. Sanchez, Mr. Pineda, and I drove out in our district suburban, mud roads and through the fields and back in undeveloped areas, hoping we wouldn't get stuck in the mud anywhere. But we went out and we did a lot of research. We looked at a lot of lands. We wrote down numbers of owners, of realtors, of whatever we could find. And if you turn to the page on tab 3, on the second page, these are some of the, Richard, if you can flip the Elmo, please. If you can dim the light also, please. Not sure if you can read that. No.
They have it there.
They have it there? Okay. Well, apologize for that. We drove out in the area of where we already bought that elementary school, the property for the elementary school on Salida de Luna. That's north of 802, behind Minnesota Avenue, where Garcia Middle School is, back to the back. There used to be an old plant there, used to blow smoke and make red clay or something like that. I forget what the name of that place is. It's right up the road from there, close to Coulter Road in Salida de Luna. And, well, the first property on there, let me back up. The properties that we bought the 80 acres across Riverbend Resorts. That property cost us $12,695 an acre. That's 29 cents a square foot. Very, very cheap land. We jumped on it right away. And it's got a major highway. It's got utilities, water lines maybe just a couple of 100 feet away. And the sewer line we're going to bore under the highway from Riverbend Resorts over across the street. It shouldn't be more than $60,000, $80,000. So we had everything there we needed, and we went to the board and we bought the property for the high school. We'll talk about busing later when Mr. Chirinos comes up. When you get to a high school, you got to bus no matter what. Your high school always takes up about 1/5 or 1/6 when it opens up, 1/6 of your entire school district boundaries. So no matter where you build, you can't do a neighborhood school. So we know we're going to bus anyway, so we selected that site. The Salida de Luna area, the second one there, was a property that was near the property that we bought, 57 cents a square foot. And then the next Salida de Luna property, the 15 acres that we bought for $27,250 an acre, 63 cents a square foot. But these are raw lands. There's no water or sewer anywhere near there. The closest one is on 802. The street is very narrow, and we're inside city limits. And whenever you're inside city limits and you're going to build a school, the city wants you to widen and improve the street in front of you. Mr. Gonzalez mentioned when we built the Champion on Bowie Road, they wanted us to widen the road from Central Avenue to Iowa Road, a mile worth of street construction. Obviously, we're not going to do that, and they were going to hold up our permit until we did it. So it turned into a big mess until finally we met with them. We said, look, we're building our school here. We'll widen the street only in front of the school. Turns out state law prohibits us from going beyond that. So we got to be careful where we spend our money, that we don't violate state laws and the IFA application for the grant money. So we're also going to have to widen that section in front of the school. We're going to have to bring water and sewer. So although the costs seem 57 cents, 63 cents, by the time you bring in the infrastructure, it'll probably double the cost by the time we're done. Probably $1, $1.20 square foot by the time we're done. The other property we didn't buy because it was a little bit actually off of Salida de Luna and another little side road and behind an undesirable building that we felt was a safety issue, a bar. So we didn't recommend that one. This is a property we bought. We're hoping this to be one of the bond programs if we can afford 3. If not, this will be paid out of local money.
Is this the old clay plant?
No, it's across the street, maybe 200-300 yards further northwest. It's right before that ditch, drain ditch. Right, and behind us is that Resaca. I think the other side is Rio del Sol or those Charmaine area and all that. There was another property that we had seen. Some of this I had done with Mr. Gonzalez back in the summer when we had another superintendent. Board was structured a little different. And when we bought these properties. And I had also looked at property there on Coulter Road and 802, close to the Salida de Luna properties that we bought. Also no infrastructure. But the developer said, you know, I'll sell you the property at $2.50 a square foot, but I'm going to build a street back there and we'll bring in the water and sewer and so forth. But we didn't know when he would actually do it. I said, we need the property to start tomorrow on the street, water, sewer, or we're not able to open the school. It could take you 2, 3, 4 years by the time you bring in the infrastructure. We need something now. And the cost at $250, we thought at that time, well, that seems kind of high for this area. The Brownsville Country Club area, we did get an offer from the realtor. The listing price, $275 a square foot, but we do have all utilities there for 11 acres. It'd be $120,000 an acre. Mr. Gonzalez mentioned
the need that was brought up earlier.
That's some of the property we need. We used to own that property, by the way.
How much did you sell it for?
I'm not going to say. I didn't sell it. I did not make the recommendation to sell it.
Mr. Gonzalez and I personally went and talked to Bill Hudson about the property on Paredes Line Road and Heritage Trail right on the other side of the Brownsville Event Center on the west side of Paredes. He wanted $3 a square foot. We actually recommended the superintendent to recommend to the board to purchase it because of this whole busing issue and so forth, and the recommendation we made was rejected. We're told, no, we're not going to buy that. It's too high. It's probably $4 a square foot now. Alton Glore and Stagecoach, there's a 6-acre tract. Well, maybe we can build a smaller elementary 2-story. I mean, we need to relieve burns and the Cameron Park area and all that. $6.56 a square foot. It's $285,668 an acre. It does have all utilities. And these are listings by Coastal Realty. You can see the signs for yourself and call the numbers and justify the price. Alton Glore and Paredes. This is actually the Glore Lumberyard. I said, well, that includes the building. We just want to buy half of the property below you. We'll build a school there, and then the schoolyard will back up against the burned schoolyard, and Maybe we can do that, something there. And they said, well, it doesn't matter, we wanted a better price. It doesn't matter, the building's really not worth much. We want to sell the whole thing at $3 a square foot, and we're not going to partition it. I'm sorry,
$6.
$6 and 11 cents a square foot. It's $266,000 an acre. We've Alton Glore and Pablo Quisel. I called Manuel Perlman. He's got his signs all over the place there. They want it. Oh no, I'm sorry. The corner of Alton Glore and Pablo Quisel was a Coastal Realty. That's $650 a square foot. All utilities, $283,000 an acre. Just south of that on Pablo Quisel, Manuel Perlman. All the land there. He says these properties go anywhere from $7 to $9 a square foot. The closer you get to Sunrise Commons, the more expensive it's going to be. Well, forget that. If we got shot down for $3 a square foot, there's no way we're going to recommend anything in the $6, $7, $8, $9 a square foot. Highway 281 in Flor de Mayo, west or southwest of Military, right there as you're heading towards the river. There's supposed to be a bridge there, according to the transportation
Flor de
plan.
Mayo, Alton Glore.
And the low-income housing all around it. Almost $3 a square foot with all utilities. That's $3.5 million for 27 acres, $126,800 an acre. Flor de Mayo Road. So we're running out of properties to look at. Well, let's look at the area south of Alton Glore where all those houses are. And according to the information that was presented to us, that's really where we need to look for them. But we didn't see any signs. We haven't been approached by anyone to sell the properties. We couldn't find any there. About 5 years ago, we had approached Mr. Simmons to sell us some property there. He was willing to sell us some property, which back then was raw land. And again, our people in charge said no. There's no infrastructure back there, and that's not where we need the schools or whatever reason. We told Mr. Simmons, thank you, but we're not interested at this time. Well, just these past 2-3 years, look what has happened there. So we said, well, let me call him again. I told Mr. Gonzalez, let me call him, see if he's interested in selling. And at first he says, well, I don't have anything. I said, well, we really need some property from schools. If there's any way you can help us, or if you know some other property owners here, we need some schools here. So he thought about it, and he came back, and we met with him, and he says, well, I have this one tract of land, 43-acre tract, the one on Alton Glore and Schaefer, but I have a buyer, and I'm going to sell it for so much. So, well, can you reconsider that and sell it to us? And but we want a little better price. And the 16-acre tract, he says, I got one there, but I'm platting it right now with the city, and I'm running water, sewer, streets, everything to it. It's got so many lots, and they're selling like hotcakes, and we're going to make, what, $20,000 to $27,000 per lot. And 2 years, they'll all be gone, maybe in a year. I said, well, can you maybe consider selling us that one? He came back a couple of days later, says, well, we've looked at the numbers with our engineer, and this is what we have invested, this is how much we're going to spend, and this is how much our profit is. We know we're going to sell those lots very quickly. And he presented a price, and Mr. Gonzalez and I, Mr. Sanchez, well, it's a little high. Can you do a better price? So we went back and forth, and he reduced it to what the number is right now. He did reduce his price some. And until we got to a point where he said, that's my final last offer. I can't go any lower, or it's just not to my benefit. I'll develop it. Or I'll sell the other property. I got buyers. I mean, everybody wants to buy there. Properties are just going up every year, every month, every day. So we looked at the property. 43 acres, came out to $1.03 a square foot. Well, that's a lot cheaper than everywhere else we had looked. And it's got all utilities. And it's going to be for 2 schools. So divide that cost in half. The $1.9 million for 2 schools, that's $850,000 each, or $900,000 each. We can justify that to the board. All utilities available. Mr. Simmons already paid for a lift station. We have a gravity line right there deep enough to serve the whole school without us having to build a lift station. And it's in the area where we're not going to bus. We don't need to bus across the street. Mr. Chirinos will present that information. How much it's going to cost if we just build it across the street. We'll pay, the investment they're going to make will pay for this property in 1 year. But I'll let Mr. Chirino, I won't steal his thunder and lightning from this presentation. And the other property, the 16 acres, came out to $1.47 a square foot. All utilities extended to the properties. Street on both sides, 2 sides of the school, just not one. Water and sewer on both sides, and that helps our ingress, egress, on how we design and bring cars in and buses and so forth. And ideal for walkers. Everyone's going to be in the middle of the neighborhood. We couldn't ask for better property, but $1.47 a square foot seemed high, but when we compared it to all the other properties in that area, we just said, you know what? Yes, it's a little higher than we're used to paying, but that's the going rate. If we wait, we're not going to find any more property, or they're going to double in price here, as the comment was made earlier. Mr. Gonzalez liked the idea. This is great. This is the one we're going to go with. We need these two properties, and I'm going to the board, and it's part of the bond program, and not only that, the state pays 75% of it. Why it'd be silly not to make this recommendation? So that's what we did. The board, the next page, they went to the board. The board heard all the information, the justifications. They had the same concerns. But after Mr. Gonzalez expressed all presented all the information and the whys and the hows, and they said, yeah, you got a point. We need to buy those properties before we lose them, because if we don't, then we're going to have to build schools in Villanueva, San Pedro, and we got to bus everybody for the next 100 years. Add up the cost for that. So we felt we need to bite the bullet, buy these properties now. It's really, and then compared to the other properties, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Unless there's someone in this room who can tell us, I know a property right next to this one for a third of the cost, please tell us. We'll go after it. But we just don't have that opportunity. Nobody's going to come forth with cheaper property in that area. That's the end of my presentation. I'll open it up for any questions. If not, Mr. Chirinos will be next. Thank you.
I find this presentation very enlightening, the way it's been done for us.
And I appreciate that. Our purpose, and you won't get this presentation again, this is for you to get started on and see why we're going in the direction we're going and why the recommendations were made. They weren't arbitrary and just, hey, that's it. We did a lot of research. We do a lot of work in this district before we make a recommendation. And we don't take lightly our recommendations. We really plan them out, and I hope you realize that. Chirinos?
Hector Chirinos, Administrator for Transportation. And basically all night I've been hearing busing, busing, busing. And yes, we are expensive. We are expensive. At a tune of when buses out on the road give you only 8 to 10 miles per gallon. At $1.79 a gallon or $1.80 a gallon, $2 a gallon of diesel or gas. It gets expensive on a daily basis. And I will start by saying that on third page on tab 4, you will see that I have a statement there saying that if we don't get into the frame of mind of building schools, neighborhood schools, our transportation costs will skyrocket in the next few years. We're already there. We do not have, at this point in time, we do not have enough buses for the elementary. We have students that are waiting 30, 45 minutes for a bus, what we call a double run, to go pick up the first 60 kids, take them home, and come back and pick up the other 60 students. That's the stage that we're in. When Mr. Gonzalez asked me what would it take or what would be the cost of if we go across the street from Elton Glore or wherever we might go, I started putting some numbers together. And I put some numbers together, and they're self-explanatory, to be honest with you. In the average of a school enrollment of 750 to 800, we use anywhere from 8 to 10 buses. And special needs buses, from 3 to 4 buses per school on a 750 to 800. In this case, if we were to build these schools in anywhere else, it would take 10 regular buses at a tune of $80,000 per bus. That's an average. On special need buses, due to the special equipment and other needs of all those individual buses, you're talking about in the average of $85,000. So you can see the numbers there, and that's based on one school. One school. In the personnel department, I just briefly, this is just on the lower scale information, to be honest with you. This is just the bread. The icing comes in when all the benefits and everything else goes into work. I'm just putting out some numbers. $10 per hour per driver. Drivers work 8 hours a day. 10 drivers, because that's what we would need for one school. You're talking about $800 per day. That's regular. On the other side, on the right-hand side, you see the 3 special needs buses. The same numbers. $10, 8 hours a day, 3 drivers, he'll give you $240 per day. That's very low scale. It doesn't include any other benefits or anything of that nature. You see the total there on the drivers, $1,040. Then on each special need buses that we have, we must have a monitor on that bus. I gave you the figures there. On the average, $9 an hour, 8 hours per day, 72, and then you can go down the line there. And you can see the cost per day. Then I put the numbers for drivers and monitors per day cost at $1,256. Put those together, multiply that by the number of days that the drivers and monitors work, and you have a total of $248,588. Very low scale. These are estimates, okay? This is a continuous cost to the district. It's a fixed cost for the district. The buses will be one-time expense. 2 schools at 20 buses, let's say. Based every December and July, we submit a state report to the Texas Education Agency. If you notice there on page 3, the last page on that tab, in 2001, I want to give you the growth of why we have double runs in the elementaries right now, and some in the middle schools. In 2001, according to the state report, 263 buses on the fleet for BISD. 2006, 294 buses. And let me add that we're just getting some new buses in today. As a matter of fact, we got 6 buses in today that would help our fleet. The difference of 31 buses between those 5 years. If you can see that the comparison in 5 years. We also provide the state with a ridership increase on a average daily ridership number. We do. In 2001, this includes all students, regular students and special ed students, 16,358. We're projecting that this year, when we submit this final report in July 1st to the state, we are transporting right now in the neighborhood of 31,017 students, in that average, over 31,000 students. The difference of students in those 5 years, you can see the difference at 14,659. If we don't consider building schools that are neighborhood schools, and I'm going to give you an example. For example, Bright Elementary. We had 8 buses running there. 8 buses running there because we had to take them to Southmost, those students that need a neighborhood, the Naranjal area, by Boca Chica. That when the school opened and we reconfigured the routes, we took away 2.5 buses from there. Those buses are needed somewhere else in other elementaries, so the students don't be waiting for 40 to 45 minutes so the round 1 can come back and pick up the round 2. So it's a complex situation where as many buses that we can reduce from the elementary, and in the past few years, we've been doing that. Mr. Gonzalez and I, we've been working on different areas. He was the administrator for operations, and through the superintendent, we were allowed to reduce some of the elementary routes. And now looking back, in my 3 years tenure there at transportation, it has really helped the rest of the schools that have large enrollments that do qualify for transportation students. An estimated cost, one time, $2 million per busing only, not taking into consideration the payroll and all the other expenses. As you can see there, I put there, if the districts, if we get away from neighborhood schools, we will pay the price later, at a later date. Pay me now, pay me late, or pay me later. This does not include, I briefly told you about the fuel, other costs. It does not include the fuel, does not include the oil, the tires, the et cetera, the repairs, and everything that comes with the operation of the fleet. We are the largest department in BISD. We have 400 employees at transportation, 263 drivers, 86 monitors, and then the rest of the staff, mechanics, dispatchers, and we just grow and grow. We grow, and we're expensive. Yes, we are. And we want to reduce that expense as much as possible throughout. And I talked to Mr. Gonzalez about these items, and I said, Mr. Gonzalez, you need to help us. Somebody needs to help us build schools, neighborhood schools, because if not, in the near future, we're going to be up to 500 buses, because we need it. We need them. If a hazardous route is created, we were talking about right now Gallegos, the school at Gallegos. If a hazardous route is created, hazardous, let me define it for you. Any student that lives across major highways, 4-lane highways, expressway, railroads, resacas, any type of hazardous environment that might cause the student to be harmed at the way to school, we must provide transportation. We provide transportation according to the law, those students that are 2 miles further from the school. That's the law. Within 2 miles, they are considered walking students, a neighborhood school. That's the law, and we have to abide by that. So all those we take into considerations when we do routes during the summer. And if we see there's some danger, then we must create a route. Keeping in mind that when we have a hazardous route, and we do have some in the district, the state only reimburses 10 cents to the dollar per mile. 10 cents to the dollar. So when we talk about, I hear all these people, I felt that they were throwing darts at me, but we are expensive. It is just an expensive operation. This, like I said, this report is just based on similar enrollments of other schools of what we're doing right now. What we're doing right now. And basically, the bottom line is that we do need to consider schools, neighborhood schools, instead of sending students out of the area or crossing major highways. I don't know if you have any questions, but yes, sir.
What is your total budget on your department? Annual budget?
14 million.
14 million.
14 million.
14 million. 14 million. And 1.5 is used for buses.
You only get 2.5 million from the state.
From the state. Mm-hmm. Yes.
We find about $11 million
14
out
million.
of local taxpayers' money for
May-
transportation.
May I make a recommendation?
Sure.
I mean, I think it's important that you do include the benefits. And as much of the fuel, the oil, and the tires, et cetera,
Oh, yes.
because it's going to show us how expensive your department is.
Mm-hmm.
And justifiably so, you're doing a great job. I've heard nothing
Thank
but
you.
great things about you and your department.
Thank you.
But I think it's important that you give us the true picture of how expensive it is for personnel, et cetera, et cetera.
And I can do that, yes.
And we need it done, because what that's going to do is going to justify paying the $1.40 per acre.
Correct.
Because your department would benefit greatly by having a school that's that's a walking school.
Correct.
So I think it's important that you include every single penny, and that way we can justify paying that rate.
I'll get together with Mr. Sanchez and I can put the other figures together. That's
But
no
you see where I'm
problem.
coming
Yes,
from,
yes,
right?
I do. I do.
I mean, you got a valid point, beautiful point.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Big dollar will be on the rich benefits like.
Yes, those where they come in. Those where when it comes in. And that's why I made it a point to tell you, this $10 and $9 don't even, it's just a lower scale. All the benefits are not included here. Okay. Anything else?
Insurance for employees.
Oh,
everything
yes,
else that goes into the
insurance
picture.
and,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, next, Chief Garcia, BISD, you're
Be
next.
the last one to present. He's
Yes.
going to tell you about what it is for our police department when we have to do major traffic. And Chief does a great job, believe you me. You got pictures.
Okay. Gonzalez, Chairman Barbosa, Chairman, members, committee members. Thank you very much. My presentation pretty much exactly, it's Very simple, very demonstrative evidence here to show that pictures tell 1,000 words. And basically, in your handout, in your notebook there, I'm looking at, from my left to right, the pictures at the top. I'm going to show here pretty much that this is the intersection of Rancho Viejo and Dana Road. One of the things that I like to point out, obviously, here is the
Rancho Viejo Road is in Cameron Park.
It's in Cameron Park
Rancho
area.
Viejo over there.
Correct. And we often have traffic that flows in and out of the Gallego School there. The problem that we see here, obviously, is the development of this road, or thereof, or lack of development. This particular vehicle here, I took a picture of this car. Actually, this parent is actually off the road, and it shows in that photograph right there. Obviously, if the other school was even considered there, would be another problematic issue for traffic. This is early in the morning before school and after school. Again, this is another picture that shows the traffic in and out of the school there at the intersection of Rancho Viejo and Dana Road. This is a picture that shows eastbound traffic, Avenida Rancho Viejo, going into the Cameron Park area. This is North Dana Road. This is intersection of Rancho Viejo and Dana Road. And that is one of our school buses that Mr. Chirinos just alluded to. Next, please. This picture here is a photograph depicting east and westbound traffic Avenida Rancho Viejo to and from school. This is early in the morning. We want to show now the Ituria area, Stillman and Ituria. What I'd like to demonstrate or show to you here, these photographs were taken, this is before school starts. One of the things that I want to demonstrate through these photographs is that this is traffic that is pretty much for between 35 and 45 minutes every day, Monday through Friday, before school and after school. If you're driven on that roadway, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the photograph illustrates the Ituria exit drop-off onto Alton Glore. Please. We have one of our officers there directing traffic into the entrance to Ituria Elementary. This particular photograph is the eastbound traffic on Alton Glore, and you can see there where there's a vehicle trying to. Okay, this one also is the northeast Alton Glore traffic. This particular photograph shows an exit onto Alton Glore from the entrance of Stillman and Ituria. Several buses are exiting the school after they've dropped all our children. This particular photograph, again, is this one's the Ituria eastbound traffic. Looks like the bridge. This particular photograph is the entrance and exit to Stillman and Ituria onto Alton Glore. This particular photograph is the photograph, let's see, this is right here, it's the next one, but this is westbound traffic on Alton Glore. And this particular photograph also shows the eastbound traffic on Alton Glore. In this particular photograph, I want to show there and demonstrate that white Hummer is trying to exit the property from the driveway there. So, yes, sir.
Trying to drive over the
very congested traffic there. This is the last photograph that we show here. This is traffic. I believe that is the eastbound traffic towards on Alton Glore in front of Ituria. So pretty much, I guess these photographs do show that semi-truck there. We have a lot of traffic there, obviously, and our needs are tremendous. For the safety of our children, we need to really pay attention to the development of our new schools. and specifically schools that are addressing the needs within the neighborhood. I think that this would really help the safety of our kids. Thank you.
Good question, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Do we work together with the city and the State Department for some kind of a traffic light or something to be placed in that area there in front of Iturria, where all that is? I mean,
Absolutely, sir. Actually, we've been in dialogue with the TxDOT. I understand that they're getting ready to expand the roadway of Alta and Galore. I've heard that we're still about 2 years away from that project. Having said that, we've worked very closely with the city to augment our safety patrol area with officers being at that intersection. And we'll continue to do it until that project comes to pass. But we're having to work a turnaround right behind Iturria to alleviate some of that, do a bypass.
Well, because I think that in reference with this type of traffic, that home association that they have there at, what is it, Lakeway, would be something tremendous to be able to get somebody out here to come and speak on their behalf, to tell you exactly what causes traffic if we're going to be building in areas across a highway from somewhere. It would be very important, especially to the board members and to all these other, let them know exactly. Because a lot of people that don't live out there, they won't see that. They will not see that. They're complaining because of the way it is on 802. 802 is perfect compared to this area, the way this is being presented. I mean, But I think we really need to be able to bring these type of.
May push. We have dialogued with the city on numerous occasions about putting a traffic light there at Iturria. Because it just hasn't happened. I mean, I'm not blaming the city or anything. It just hasn't happened. Everybody says, well, you pay for the traffic light. Well, you pay for the traffic light. Well, we're not in the business we're in the business of educating kids, not putting up traffic lights. But, and we can't do it technically, legally, put up a traffic signal. That's not the function of a school district. And I said, well, you created the mess by putting 2 schools there. And I say, remember at the very beginning, I'll remind you that I said we try not to duplicate our mistakes. When we put those 2 schools there, we created a big traffic jam. It just wasn't conducive. The board had to come back and approve a plan at a cost of $700,000 to reroute traffic there, to get it out of Stillman, because the buses were in cars. Everybody was just jammed up in there. One entrance only to both schools. It was a big mess. And so we have to come up, and we had hired an engineer, and it cost us about $700,000. We started working, I guess, what is it, about another 2 or 3 weeks, Oscar, from that? It started already. We're going to do the construction, and it cost us $700,000. That's another added cost to that land. Yeah, we bought it for $20,000 an acre behind Iturria. No walkers, no nothing. And we're going to go back and put another $700,000 in it just to get the traffic in and out of there. And there was no infrastructure in there. We had to put all the infrastructure back in there. And everybody's upset. We tried to buy that, remember? It even came out in the newspaper. I don't know if Aaron's still here or not. But why didn't we buy that little piece of land right in front of Iturria? Little half acre to make a little parking lot there for teachers or whatever. Well, we decided we were going to be real good and we were going to do eminent domain. And so we went out the eminent domain, and for the little half acre, a lot of people say, how much is it worth? It's just a little half acre in front of Iturria. Well, the appraiser said it's worth $190,000. So we backed off. He said, go ahead and keep it. We don't need that half acre that desperately. But that's what the value of that land is right there in front of Iturria. Everything along Alta and Galore is very high. It's a high value property. So when we look at it, we don't want to duplicate going across the street and taking all those kids there and putting a middle school and an elementary back to back, which we're planning on doing on the other side of the street where it becomes Walker. They're going to put it on that other side of the street where traffic is just without a traffic signal. We need, and we do it. That costs you a lot of money. I mean, a lot of people say, well, did we ever pay for a traffic signal? Yes, we did. I know Hudson says he donated the land to build Hudson Elementary. Well, he didn't quite do that. And I'm being honest with Bill. I mean, he knows this. He says, we'll donate the land, but you put in all the infrastructure. It costs $24,000 an acre. when we built all the infrastructure and put on the traffic light and did Seville Boulevard, put all the water and sewer and everything else we could in there. So it really wasn't for free. It cost us $24,000 just for infrastructure per acre. And that was 7 years ago. I guess infrastructure is going about $30,000 an acre right now.
I think we're more closer to 35,000.
Yeah, so you see, when you get infrastructure in, it makes a big difference on the value of land, and location is very essential to us.
Are the employees directing the traffic, employees of BISD?
Yes.
We have to count that.
We have to pay that. That's part of our cost. That's every day. I have to have an officer out there directing traffic.
Mr. Gonzalez, I can just see on that Ituria site, it's just a major accident fixing to happen.
Waiting to happen. And some kids, I'm being honest with you, Chief can tell you this.
Already 5 accidents there.
I mean, they try to cross that road with all the traffic there. When the parents can't take them to school or they miss the bus, they try to cross that major highway. And, you know, it's just an accident waiting to happen somewhere. And we have accidents out there all the time, especially the first week of school, man. And everybody's honking and, you know, everybody wants out of the way, and you got road rage out there. And we don't want to do that again. We certainly don't want to go in that direction again.
Possible to consider either a passover walkway or an underpass walkway as the state rebuilds that road, or would that the state wouldn't allow it and you'd still have to bus everybody?
We still have to bus it. The cost of bus it, and unfortunately on those kids that live right across the street there, it's only 10 cents on the dollar. The state says you build them there, it's going to cost you for building it there. You need to strategically build schools, not just build schools.
How much does the state reimburse you if it's not in a hazardous area?
It all depends on the linear.
It's a very complicated formula.
Yeah.
I should have asked that question.
No, it goes into, maybe it could be 130, 140, 125, $1.25, okay, per mile.
Per mile.
Per mile. That's where we get the linear mile.
It doesn't cover the cost.
Oh, no.
So it
covers.
Besides,
it's a
covers
formula
about
they use
50% of the cost. So you're taking
50%.
So you're talking about 5% really of the cost of transporting kids, what you get back from the state.
So when you're looking at the expense cost of transportation and the cost that is costing the local tax dollars to buy the property,
It's offset.
I mean, it's way offsetting if doing it correctly in the first place.
It would offset it immediately, and the thing about it is you have perpetual costs once you do transportation. It's forever. So, you know, it might seem a little bit higher at the beginning and say, oh, $40,000 an acre versus 25. Well, those $15,000 difference per acre is nothing compared to what you're going to run into transportation. It's just unbelievable. The buses, it costs you $80,000 to buy, I don't know, you know, it costs you $80,000 to buy a bus now. And you got to replace it in 20 years. And it costs you, and now with the minimum wage going up, it's going to cost you a lot more in the fuel costs and everything else. And we provide free insurance for a bus driver at a cost of what, 300 and something, Lorenzo, a month? What is it?
$4,000 a year.
$4,000 a year per employee for insurance. Plus the benefits for the state teacher retirement, all kinds of taxes, you name it. It costs you about $25,000 a year per driver cost. I'm telling you that honestly. Put 10 drivers out there, it's $250,000 fixed cost just for salary and fringe benefits. That's not for fuel or buses or anything.
How powerful that is.
That's what it costs you. So I hope this brings you up to date on where we're going. And I know, Butch, you have a lot of work to do with this group. And I know that this would be the longest meeting you have with me. But I felt it was necessary to bring you up to date because you need to know where we're at.
First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for making us and bringing us up to date. And I think it was a wonderful presentation. But here again, I'll put my 2 cents worth. We need this type of information to be going out to the public also. You know, we've got the TV situation that I think is a great asset to you. And I think this is a way that we can get to the public and letting them know the true fact of what is going on. If this was being presented to us 2 or 3 days ago on the television and we all had our times to look at it, you know, I think we would have been at the same time that we are today, very impressed with what's going on, you know, and letting you know that you are doing a good job and that everybody in your staff is up to par in what's going on. And I think that's what we need to do. and I don't think there was anybody objecting to anything. I think it's done correctly. I think that what we just need to do at this point is find out when we're going to meet and get the bylaws together, and then that should move it on forward.
I have one question. I think Mr. Tapia was asking for a validation of the purchase of the two new properties. Is that something we want to undertake tonight and say that we support the purchase of those two new properties, since it is in the process and it does appear to be very beneficial?
You're going to make this presentation on Monday, you say?
The Facilities
Facility Committee. And then from that Facility Committee, they will be brought on Tuesday for the board meeting? Is that
Well, what happened is this: these properties have been bought. I'm not, you know, and Mike is here. I think Mike Zadana is here. They're under contract and earnest money and everything. We're moving forward with it. However, there has been some cold feet due to the fact of an article in the newspaper plus a letter to the editor saying that this was outrageous and so on and so forth. And that's fine. People can comment whatever they want to. We wanted to bring you the facts as to why we're making the recommendations we recommend. Mr. Hoskin, you're absolutely right. We like to sort of have a validation from this group.
I'll make a motion.
Wait a second, Mr. Chairman, I think we should hear from the public first.
Just a minute, okay? Just a minute. We are at a committee meeting, and I don't know exactly where we're going to stand as far as the committee's concerned. I personally a lot disagree with all this stuff, all these comments being said and stuff. And this is a committee meeting. You all have to say, so you all are going to be giving the input. And I think that at this point, if that's what we want to do, we need to work on our bylaws before we're going to come out here and say that, you know, the public is going to be able to have an input in this, or it's not going to have an input, or whatever the situation. But as far as this even is concerned, I think you are correct, Charlie, as far as saying that the group is in support of the situation and we're giving the blessing as a group, and let it go at that, and then work with our bylaws so that we can meet. I'd imagine at this time we need to meet on Wednesday, this next Wednesday that's coming up, so we can bring the bylaws together, put it together, and then at that evening we'll be able to determine, as far as the meeting are concerned, if it's okay with everybody else. And, you know, I'll take it as a motion from you, and it was seconded by, I heard somebody else over here second that. Nobody? Nobody seconded, okay. So it was, you know, it died for lack of a second, but we'll let it go at that.
Okay.
I think it's we don't have a set of bylaws yet, so we don't really have any operating parameters. I think everybody that's looked at this land purchase, these all make sense. They all seem to be fit the parameters of what the school district needs, and I don't think anybody here will argue that that those aren't good sites, and they don't appear to be priced too high. They're, you know, that's what land's going for around town. That's all there is to it. Just go look around. But, I for one be supportive of this.
Okay.
For myself, you know, I mean, I'm just in a process of learning. This has been very informative to me. I think there's still a lot for me to learn as to what makes sense for the school as to, you know, purchasing and or the location of a property that is a neighborhood school, that is a walking school, that eliminates transportation costs, that is cost effective for the school district. For me, that makes sense. But the thing is that all the research and time that you all have devoted to looking at the demographics and the growth, well, I mean, that must have been countless of hours of you doing that, I would think.
Yes.
And so for me to make a judgment right now, I would say it would be kind of, you know, very preliminary as to making an informative decision on my part. But I just want to say that I think that as far as the action items for this committee tonight is to, you know, do a bylaw committee so we can get the bylaws done, and at the same time also look at the nominating committee. So those are two action items I think that we need to take care of.
Can we,
a nominating committee?
Well, the nominating committee for the.
Chairperson.
Chairperson.
We'll need, let's put 3 people for the bylaws. I don't know if we have any volunteers for that.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, that's 1,
I'll do the same.
2. Okay, no, okay. So it'll be the 3 of you for the bylaws, and make sure that any additions or anybody wants to add anything, make sure that we contact any,
Get the name? Okay.
that's Arturo Farias, Mr. Sykes, and Michael Rodriguez.
Zayas. Mr. Zayas.
Zayas.
Coach, I used to play for you.
Yes, they say, I know you're gonna say that, you're gonna play, you played for me when you make me feel very old. Used to coaching when he was in Little League and then full league, so. Anyway, for the nominating committee, we need maybe 3 peoples. Terry? Nominating committee?
That's fine, go ahead.
Dan, one more person?
Right here.
Okay, let's go to
Yeah, John.
Mr. De Leon.
De Leon. You want to be on the committee, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, that's fine.
Well, we'll get with.
Dr. Jimenez also.
And then at the next meeting, we'll be able to meet, get the bylaws straightened, the nominating, and then we'll decide exactly on the meeting time for next time. Anybody else, any comments or anything from anybody?
We're going to meet Wednesday at 5:30 again?
Wednesday at 5:30, if it's okay, deal?
Wednesday at 5:30 right here, we'll reserve the room for you. You'll have your meetings here unless y'all want to help hold them somewhere else. Otherwise, I'll reserve the meeting room for you here.
Mr. Ahmad, you had a comment or something on there, or
I have
just?
a comment germane to what you're doing, and I'd like to be heard if it's possible. It's very germane.
In reference to what? I don't.
Land purchases. I mean, several people referred to it. I think you need to hear why the statements were made. I have visited the property, have you?
We have not, but we're not here discussing it. We're just something that was presented to it.
I mean, it was referred to my letter in the Brownsville Herald as to why I disagreed. I agree with the reasoning, I agree with the planning. I'm not against that at all. In fact, I'm not even against the purchase, providing certain things, but that's up to you if you let me speak or not.
I'd like to speak also.
You want to give them just 2 or 3 minutes? You can settle time limit.
We can't, I don't think, we'll give you 2 minutes apiece, and if anybody else, I mean, we don't, I think we're in a situation where we really can't,
You tell us what you want. I don't think.
You can give us 2 minutes, we'll give you 2 minutes to tell us whatever it is you want to tell us.
Mr. Saldana, would you mind keeping the time for us? I know you always do for the board.
I think I'm going to need more than 2 minutes, Butch.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to need more than 2 minutes.
Well,
And I think it's
okay,
fair,
all I've
since
got
I'm
to
a
say,
player in this thing.
all I'm saying is that we're not in any official capacity to make any decisions or anything, to do anything. I don't know exactly what it is that you want to tell us.
I've got some information for you that I think would be beneficial. To start with, I'd like to tell you that I'd like to back out on the deal of selling the land.
Okay, but that's
Right.
something that you may want to tell the board. We have no say-so in the matter,
I'm just kidding with you.
Oh.
I found out it's only too cheap.
I found it's only too cheap.
Give me 2 minutes. And would you please put that plat back up there and don't start the 2 minutes till I get around behind the podium?
Okay, you tell him when.
Where's Michael? Mr. Saldana?
You got 2 minutes.
Oh,
I'm not at the podium yet. Gotta do a little talking before we get to the No, what I want to give you is, Ariel Chavez, our engineer, we are the ones that produced this map and furnished it to the school. We worked that area for 10 years. And I think you need to look at the overall area that's encircled by highways, and you haven't looked at the total cost. I'm kidding about backing up on the sale of the land. You'll find that $352,000 of that $1.50 a foot is improvements, which I gave you all a breakdown. $352,000, $20 an acre is the cost of the improvements that I'm putting in for the school, and that's in the contract.
It's in the contract. It's true. He will put two roads 60 foot wide on both sides of the school and all infrastructure up to the property. on both sides. That's a tremendous, I mean, that's the roads and all the infrastructure. And it's not 40 foot, I thought it was 40 foot, it's 60 foot roads that's in the contract.
This area that you're looking at here is surrounded by state highways. You got 281, you got 802, you're going to have a west loop that's going to replace the railroad track, and you got out and Glover, and it's going to be cut in two by state highway, which is Marston Road. So you've got to even, within that area, consider you may have to move students to cross Marston Road. We project that within this total area here, there's 4,500 houses that's either built or going to be built in that area. If you figure that you got 2.5 kids to the school, or 1.5 elementary, you got about 6,000 or 7,000 elementary school children in that area surrounded by highways. You're going to have about 6 grade schools in that area. You better get busy and find more land before these people in here, we talked about 50,000 an acre and they turned it down. I don't know about the other tract in here, the Richardson tract. It was owned by Oversight one time and somebody in McAllen bought it. We own this land here. I've said that maybe we would consider something here. We have 20 acres. But you've got a problem out there, and I tried to get the board to listen to me 5 years ago, as Mr. Gonzalez said, when we were doing the master planning of the area, and this is the first time in 40 years that I've been doing business in Brownfield that I've ever had anyone come and ask, what are y'all going to do? What we have done with lost residents, we went out on 511 north of there, there's going to be about 6,000 houses. And that's really where we're going to move. When this is fully developed, everything in Brownsville in the lower income bracket is going to move into Lost Fresnos. Lost Fresnos is building 2 schools and there's not a house out there. We proved to them that 5 developers own that land and they're going to end up needing many schools in that area. They're building 2 schools without a house in the area because of the study that we made. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
And I'm happy with my price.
3 minutes, Mr.
3 minutes.
How about building that school, you know?
You
throw the school in once you get.
3.5.
That would be nice.
Go around here. Got to cross.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for allowing us to speak, and I commend you all for the task you're undertaking. I am not your enemy. I'm just a concerned citizen just like everybody else, and I rely on information that I obtain like many of you do. But I'm an expert in appraising. A lot of bankers rely and make multi-million-dollar decisions, as Arturo Farias can tell you. That's my expertise. I went and looked at the land, and I urge each and every one of you, before you come to a conclusion, go look at the land. You will notice there's no infrastructure. It is raw land, as it is right now. Are we buying land, vacant land, raw land, or are we buying infrastructure? Because if the price is per land, $63,000 an acre does not justify it. Because let me tell you, this right here, all this acres was bought at $12,500.
It was bought at 15, Pat.
I talked to Hispania today and I talked to Dennis, okay? Let's say 15. Let's say $15,000. That's still $40,000 more of infrastructure. Are we building infrastructure for the developer so you can develop this over here, or are we building infrastructure for the schools? So I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying we need to get the facts, because based on what the report was, we were paying $3 million for vacant land, and I went to see the vacant land. There's no roads frontage, and that's a concern. So your fiduciary duty should be to request an appraisal. That's common sense. And based on that, make some sound decisions. And if you cannot come to the meetings of the mind, you have the eminent domain powers to where you offer, and somebody said appraised value is not fair market value. That's wrong. Appraised value can be fair market value. You ask for an appraisal for fair market value, then you go back to the developer or the seller. It doesn't have to be him. And you say, this is what fair market value is, and that's what we're willing to pay, maybe even a little extra. If not, you can use your eminent domain powers and take it and pay fair market value. Because what you're doing, you're setting a bad precedent, in my opinion. You're paying $63,000 an acre for this, $45,000 an acre for that. Right now, it's raw, okay? Well, now, where are you going to stop? Tomorrow, you're going to need more land for BISD. Just because it's BISD, you're going to pay $200,000 an acre? Market value is defined also, not just by a willing buyer and willing seller. It's defined by the conditions, exposure of a sale, exposure in a competitive market for a reasonable time prior to the sale. That's part of market value. And nobody's going to pay $63,000 an acre or $45,000 for an acre in the market. Nobody. And I want to see the comps that will support that to refute what I'm saying. I'm an expert at this. I know what I'm talking about. I go to court on this. Now, what I'm saying here is just use prudent judgment, protect the taxpayers. Just because money's coming from the state, 75% and 25% local, that doesn't give us the right to squander the bond money and taxpayers' money, because we're all taxpayers. I'm not against the developer. I just want what's fair and equitable and follow a prudent process that protects the investor, which is the taxpayer, to get the highest return so we can educate our children and utilize those money for leverage. Now, what's going to happen if you buy that at that price? All that property around there is going to be assessed. I got a call from the Cameron County Appraisal District. If this deal goes through, all those properties are going to be affected. You're going to have a higher assessment property taxes based on that. Also, I have no vendetta, like somebody said against. I'm PUB's champion. I mean, the BISD's champion at the PUB. Didn't I help get reduced rates for you guys in the expenses? Didn't I champion for you all to reduce your rates as far as a school district, 10, 15%? So I have no vendetta against BISD. I'm your friend. I'm here to help you. Now, the eminent domain is a very powerful tool in trying to do what's right. The reasoning and your planning, nobody can argue. But you cannot put the value of what you say from busing children to the value of the land. That's a separate issue. Those other components you talked about that we all support here does not affect the value. There's no ingress and there's no egress. Now, this land abuts the railroad. It abuts a railroad right now. So, in the market, that hurts the desirability and the marketability as it is right now. What happens in the future, you shouldn't be paying for what it's going to be worth in the future today, but you're setting a bad precedent by doing that. And I could go more, but I think you get the picture. I'm here to work with you. One thing I noticed, why didn't they show us the pictures of the subject property you all are making a decision on? Wouldn't that be nice? None of you have visited. I talked to board members. I took them personally to see the property. They were shocked. They were shocked. Now, they're making decisions without even looking at the property, without getting some guidance from experts as appraisers. Mr. Gonzalez, with all due respect, who I supported to get here, okay, is not an expert in my field. Mr. Tapia is not an expert in my field. He can go by his gut. He can go by what he wants because I want it. I'm willing to pay this. That does not make it right. I urge you, use common sense, do the right thing, follow a process that keeps you clean, because you're making decisions that you don't want to be accused of, that you did not use common sense and followed a practice that any business person would do. And no lender would lend that kind of money on someone without an appraisal. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Let me make Butch, let me make one more.
Okay, look,
18 acres
wait a minute,
that lies just below C there that's green. I just paid $65,000 an acre for it in April. So I'm paying $1.50 a foot for land, selling it for $1.
All right, I think that's all we have. Thank you a lot for taking the time to.
When are you going to meet again? Wednesday?
Wednesday at 5:30.
Wednesday at 5:30?
Wednesday at 5:30.
Wednesday at 5:30.
Bylaws.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.